Welcome to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 World Tour. What we're going to do here is fly from city to city, one flight at a time, to try to see as much of the world in this game as possible. Starting from Newport, Rhode Island, which is where I am in real life. I have gone back and forth quite a bit on leaving real-time weather and time on. But it started out as a cloudy day here in Newport. Right now, in real life, it's pretty sunny, but still in the game, it's almost solid gray. And that's just no fun to fly through. So I think what we're going to do is adjust the weather and time to be daytime and at least mostly sunny. Right now, I've got clear skies on. We might do some partly cloudy at some point, and we might do some real-time weather if it's not too bad. But I just don't want to be flying through solid gray the whole time. We're going to go one flight at a time. I think this flight I'll go up to Boston, probably go over Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket and Cape Cod on the way to Boston, and then we'll decide where to go from there. The graphics I have turned up to Ultra. They should be good. I think my OBS settings are good enough where the video won't be super choppy, but there might be some instances of lag and choppiness. Hopefully not too bad. And while we're flying, since I'm not just going to talk constantly for a couple hours, probably do like 2-hour flights at a time, I think we're going to listen to some podcasts. I've got a couple different podcasts that I like to listen to, and this is a good opportunity to catch up on them. We're going to start with the Tony Kornheiser Show, which is kind of a sports podcast, also a podcast about living in the Washington, D.C. area, which I did for 10 years. So we'll start that. He only does 3 podcasts a week. Today is actually Saturday, May 21st. It is 10:53 a.m. I do have real time on here. I just have clear skies instead of real-time weather. The podcasts we're going to listen to are from Tuesday and Wednesday of earlier this week, so May 17th and May 18th. So the information will be a little outdated, but figured I might as well use this time to catch up on my podcasts. So without further ado, we are going to fire up the first podcast from Tuesday, May 17th, Tony Kornheiser Show, and take off from Newport, Rhode Island.
Previously on the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the first live show I've seen in years.
These kids are 5.
These kids are 5. And they had the Great Zucchini. Have you heard of the Great Zucchini?
I had not until you told me.
Some great quotes from local TV, from the newspaper. A blend of comedy, misdirection, magic. I was really hoping that Nigel was going to come out for the after dark crowd just with a lit cigarette. Hey, kids.
This is General George Washington, and you're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
More on the Great Zucchini to follow in a moment. To start out, Ronnie Newmeyer sent me a very nice note. They played on Helen's Cul-de-sac on Saturday night. And he writes, as we were setting up in a steady drizzle, it appeared unlikely that anyone would venture out. During sound check, the band began noodling around on Here Comes the Sun. And lo and behold, as they finished, the sun peeked through for the first time all day. It turned into a beautiful night with families and groups numbering about 150, soon streaming into the court to hear the band who were in fine form. Beatles magic is everywhere. So it's just very nice. I appreciate that. Very nice. And also, and this comes out of nowhere, and you know how they ask you to say on an email what the subject line is?
Yes.
And it just says, if Don Henley were a little, that's all it says. And it's from Mike in Ellicott City. It says, out on the road today, I saw a TK Show sticker on a Subaru. A little voice inside my head said, don't look back, you can never look back. That made me very, very happy. Okay, some other things. Let me thank the people, the crew from Pineapple Landscaping. That's, of course, run by Finn. Actually, it's run by Alex, and Finn is there. Finn is my friend, and Alex is his son. We have a pine tree in the front yard, and the lower branches were becoming obstacles to walk under. And so they came over, and I asked them, could you just remove some of the older, lower branches? Only 3 of them. And I'm very appreciative of that. You know how long it takes a crew to do that? 1 minute.
Yeah, it's no.
It's 1 minute. They cut the branch. They take it in the truck. They leave. Takes a minute. You know how long it takes an average person? Like an hour and a half.
So I'm a little
You can't do it.
disappointed because I have an expandable pole saw at home that I was hoping to bring over.
Well, I've talked about this for months.
I offered to bring it over. I can get that thing up to like 15 feet.
Oh, well.
Now, it's a little scary when it's that tall.
Yeah. Anyway, so I appreciate that. There's a story in the Post today. It is not generated by the Washington Post. So it's just, it's picked up from somewhere else. About Jack Nicklaus and the tour, the Saudi golf tour, which is referred to as LIV or LVI. I don't really know what that stands for. It doesn't really matter. It's the Greg Norman thing. Jack Nicklaus said he was offered over $100 million to do the job he thinks Greg Norman was subsequently hired to do. Over $100 million. Which leads you to, what is money to the Saudis? They don't care. Doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything to them. And he turned it down. He said, no. I helped form the PGA Tour. I like the PGA Tour. I'm not going to do this. So good for him. Yeah. So good for him. Much as in Greg Norman's career being overshadowed by Jack Nicklaus, who, by the way, called Greg Norman the heir apparent to him. He loved Greg Norman as a player. And then there was the heartache of all the sort of ways that Greg Norman was beaten late in major tournaments.
And lost them himself due to poor play on Sunday.
Yeah. So,
you remember the shocking gold hair when he first came out to the Masters?
Over $100 million.
Seems pretty cheap. That must
job.
have been the first offer. I mean, if you're willing to offer people like Bryson DeChambeau hundreds of millions of dollars, you'd think you'd offer the most recognizable golfer of all time a bit more, maybe even something in the equity stake. But
well, maybe they did, and maybe he just didn't disclose that. I don't know.
Were you surprised by the Ricky news?
Who was? Go ahead.
No, where Ricky Fowler goes like, I'm happy to play in the PGA Tour now, but I haven't fully decided. You want to say, fully decided? You're barely getting into the PGA Championship this week, and you sort of have to decide. I mean, this tournament starts in 3 weeks.
But for somebody without results in the last 2 to 3 years, Ricky Fowler still does more commercials than everyone else. Still is positioned as somebody who people like. People totally like him. That's important when you're selling yourself with the invention of this term, a brand. Ricky Fowler's brand stands for something good.
Ricky Fowler's brand is something that is fun, that is kid-friendly, that goes outside and beyond the game of golf. Yeah. Some people have said that focus has hurt his ability to play the golf.
Maybe, but he's making more money.
Yeah, so I would say he's actually shifted. He's more of the actor than he is the golfer at this point, which is fine.
Yeah.
But that changes something if you start to see his corporate partners, if he decides to play over there, how they decide to go forward with that relationship.
There is, and let me say this, I was watching... The Golf Channel has a show called Live From that they do at majors and some other tournaments, but certainly at majors. And it was hosted by Rich Lerner, and Brandel Chambly was on it, and Brad Faxon was on it last night. Rich Lerner delivered an essay, 4, 5, 6 minutes long, about Phil Mickelson that I'm going to guess he wrote. It was really good. It specifically put you in a position to understand everything that had gone on with Phil Mickelson and how he has, and Rich Lerner made it very clear he had fallen from grace. He wasn't taking the position, everything's good. Not at all. Brandel Chambly is very, very good. Now, he's arrogant. He is utterly convinced of his own brilliance. And a lot of people don't like him. I do. I think he's very good. You go to him, it seems to me he knows what he's talking about. He's a great analyst, I think.
Yeah.
Right?
I think he's great. I think some of the question was, it's interesting to look at him and his playing career versus, say, even Faxon and
well, he had no
critical
play.
He's able to be now.
Yeah. I mean, because a good player could say, who are you to criticize me? What did you ever do on this tour? But I don't really think that matters. I think he's very good. When I say arrogant, I don't mean like in a hateable way. I mean in a... I'm pretty smart and I know what I'm doing. Listen to me.
And a full student of the game, not just some of the platitudes that you hear in sort of the day-to-day coverage.
He's not even as arrogant as I am, but I'm ridiculously arrogant. Anyway, he's very good. So I was watching that, and I've enjoyed all the Phil stuff. Who was the woman yesterday who sent us the email about Bonnie and the ball that Bonnie missed?
Oh, yes, I don't remember her name.
Well, get it at some point. You have to get it right now. Because I talked to Bonnie about this yesterday. Because remember she said, could you get me a Mr. Met
Yes.
hold up thing, heads on
Heads on
sticks,
stick.
right? Well, I said to Bonnie, "What about that?" And Bonnie said, "If you give me the ball,
So
I'll give you Mr. and Mrs. Met on sticks."
okay.
So find that out, and so we can pursue that. And the other thing on yesterday's show was the great zucchini. As we went through, Michael explained he went to see this particular entertainer who's got not a monopoly on, but certainly makes a very good living from kids' parties. And I'd never heard of him and didn't know much about it. And we have a couple of emails. And this is from Betsy Jaffe, right? Do we know Betsy Jaffe in Reston, Virginia? I don't know.
Not familiar with that.
Listening to Michael recall his weekend filled with early childhood birthday parties brought back many memories for me. It seems like yesterday that my daughter, now 20 years old and a rising junior at Virginia Tech, was attending 3 to 4 birthday parties a weekend filled with animals, entertainers, and hapless parents trying to keep up with it all. I remember hiring a traveling aquarium for an under-the-sea party held in the children's gym where kids ran under parachutes, which was my favorite activity from elementary school gym class. I remember attending a birthday party for my daughter's friend that featured the great Zucchini, who you spoke of. He was such a pro and really commanded the standing room only crowd in my friend's basement, so you can imagine my surprise when I saw him profiled in the Washington Post a few months later. And it was not just any write-up, it was a very long piece about the great Zucchini. But it was written, I believe, in 2005 or 2006. It
Yes.
was referred to me yesterday. Matt Rennie said to read this. It's really good. Just as you imagine Krusty the Clown, the great Zucchini was a smoker. The great Zucchini lost much of his money betting on sports and had so many unpaid parking tickets he could not drive to appearances despite earning 6 figures. He had a hard childhood, and yet he is hopelessly endearing. He haplessly keeps all of his appointments in a book, then is terrified of it disappearing. Anyway, so I read this as well. It says, Michael, enjoy this time in your children's life. One day you were attending the endless stream of birthday parties, and suddenly you're worrying about their adulting skills. After all, there can be only one great Zucchini. One other from Mark Sandler. Like Michael, I am firmly entrenched in the kid birthday party circuit. I've seen the great Zucchini at least 5 or 6 times in the last year. During the first party I saw him at, I was chatting with a friend about some parlay bet I had made, and this guy appears seemingly out of nowhere to join the conversation. Figuring it was another dad at the party, we proceeded to have a 10-minute conversation about our bets for the week, favorite sports book in Vegas, and so on. All of a sudden, mid-sentence, he says, "Oh man, it's time to go," and walks right onto the stage to start the show. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little disappointed that he wasn't dressed like a zucchini, but he definitely puts on a great show. And one more from Terry Gans in Longboat Key, Florida. When my son Danny was 8 or 9, we had a kid magician from the neighborhood. I can't remember his stage name, but it was David Braun, ably assisted by his brother Gary. I was entertained, the kids were attentive, the cake was good from Giant, and David worked cheap. What else could you want? Call Gary about that.
To see if that duo is available. Yes. So imagine this, when Liz goes online and she sees, I guess this is on the Great Zucchini's website, quote, "It was a nice surprise waking up this morning and hearing them talk about me on the Tony Kornheiser show. He heard!"
So maybe he's a listener. But I will say this.
I think there's a few openings for July. Do you want to do a shared birthday party with the Hammer?
Yeah. 74 and 3.
Maybe he can make you disappear.
Yeah, that would be great. In the piece, one of the takeaways I had from the piece was a certain amount of embarrassment on the part of the people that hired this guy. Because I guess they were spending a bunch of money on a kid's birthday party. I'm the guy who says buy the toaster. Skip the dinner. Buy the toaster. This is your kid. If you think this is fun for the kids, do it. If you have it, you're not going into debt for this. He's not charging $10,000 an hour. He's not doing that. I don't know what he's charging now, but if you can afford it and he's good and your kids enjoy it, why wouldn't you? If you can afford it.
Yeah.
No one is asking someone who can't find rent money to hire an entertainer for their kid's party, right? You found him to be engaging and wonderful.
I
right?
thought it was a great performance. And then just think about the memories. So I remember in this backyard, you hired our gym teacher from Lafayette. Do you remember? Who ran a birthday party with games from school, and we still
I don't
have pictures.
remember anything.
We still have pictures of it.
I don't know who
She's just
you are.
having us play tag around the backyard.
Yeah.
Kids remember.
Yeah. So I think it's
Sometimes
I mean,
somebody's worth it.
Michael and I were talking before the show, and you used an interesting phrase, arms race. You want to explain what you mean.
Well, so it comes down to This is whether you're doing an addition onto your house, whether you're looking at what sort of car is the car du jour in your street, your neighborhood, the school, all that. But for me, I look at something like this. I'd rather spend money on the individual or the performer or the talent rather than, say, a venue. Not to name names, but if you were trying to, book a venue that just says we got into this place.
Yeah. So I mean, if you can do it and it pleases your child and it pleases you, then do it.
And that's the thing you seem to get consistently is the kids at all these shows just absolutely love it.
And I guess, it's a very specialized
Yes.
event, and he does it. Again, the story was written 15, 16 years ago. I don't know why it would change. That's his work day, the weekends.
Yep.
He does 3-4 parties a day on the weekends, makes a living, and can do, as we like to say, you can do what you want with the money you earn. You can do what you want with it. We'll take a break. Brian Windhorst when we return. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
You know those days when your coffee shop is out of cold brew and your air conditioner breaks and you try to go to the beach but there's 0 parking spots? Yeah, life can be hard.
Tough.
It's the underpants read. You had me until going to the beach. Good thing MeUndies is here to help you take a break from the hardships of the world and give yourself a soft summer. There is nothing like the iced coffee swirl as you go about your day when it's nice and warm outside. When you're cocooned in the softest and most breathable undies, loungewear, and swimwear, I didn't know about the swimwear known to humanity. All your other problems will simply melt away. They want me to talk about how I might relax to the max. Honestly, with 2 under 5 at home, we're just waiting for the shot. Then we'll consider relaxing to the max.
That's right.
Let's face it, summer is sweaty. We're approaching the 2-a-days, but you're behind. That's the word we have to use at home with the 5-year-old. Your behind doesn't have to be. With MeUndies light and breathable micromodal fabric, you can stay comfy and cool all summer long. They have super fun seasonal prints and tons of seasonal prints and tons of styles to choose from. In sizes extra small to 4XL. I'm somewhere along that spectrum. So you can bring the beach to your...
Everybody is somewhere along that spectrum.
Sadly, my spectrum has been shifting a little bit, so just you can bring the beach to your behind without ever leaving your living room. If you dare to brave the heat, venture to the pool or beach, check out their new and improved swimwear styles. They're soft, stretchy, and sustainably made. Make it a soft summer with MeUndies. This is wonderful. They have all sorts of new prints. I'm very interested in the No Problema print. A shout out to Llama Llama, I think. It's a children's book.
No, not Ramalama Ding Dong.
So hit it.
Yeah.
MeUndies has a great offer for Tony's listeners. For any first-time purchasers, you get 15% off. If you sign up for their free-to-join membership, you can apply that 15% off to their already discounted membership prices. To get your 15% off your first order and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/TonyK. That's MeUndies.com/TonyK.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show. Tony Kornheiser Show.
Andrew Flowers sends this in. Says, greetings again to the gang, sending you a second submission from the band Levy. When I made the Don McLean reference in my last email to help with the band's pronunciation, I didn't realize there was a history. Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm a millennial little who picked up the show when it went to podcast, so it takes the 21st telling of a story for me to catch up on tales many littles could recite themselves. But don't worry, Flutie Gang, Coffee, Ice Cream, the Moon, I've got those. Did you see the moon last night?
So the moon makes its appearance a little after the boys go to bed, and you have multiple shades drawn in their rooms.
Okay, so,
I saw it.
Yeah, it's lovely. This is from the new EP called Berry. This is called Contradictions. We'll play them twice. On Thursday, May 26th, they'll be at the Brookland Tavern in the land of the in-laws, South Carolina. Fair warning, we tuned up the guitars for this one. This is called Contradictions. And as I say, it plays in Brian Windhorst. And the first question for Brian, I guess, is no haircut today. Like, you're okay today? No haircut?
No haircut. And can I, how long can I go? Can I make it to the end of the finals? We're all waiting to see.
Is there a line on that? Is it a make it rain line with the girl from DraftKings? Is there a line on how long you can go? What's the over-under?
It's really kind of it's a back and forth between how long can I go and how long can the hair product hold out. Because, I've got this, thing of hair goop that I use. And, the longer the hair, the more the goop. And it's really a race against time.
Yeah, I don't have those problems. I used to,
Oh, I'm
but I
sorry.
don't anymore. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I've got a career. I'm all right. Paying the rent.
It's a
There's a million questions you can ask about the NBA, but there's one that floats above all and creates enormous distance between it and any other question. And it is simply, what in God's name happened to Phoenix?
Yeah, I spent yesterday trying to talk to some people to figure it out. Some people in Phoenix, some people who know things about Phoenix, Tony, and I don't have a good answer. The most basic one is that Chris Paul fell off a cliff after Game 2. He played really well at the end of the last series.
Don't tell Wilbon. Don't tell Wilbon. Okay, go ahead.
He thinks I missed that. He thinks he's played just fine.
No, he loves him. He will not criticize him on any level, leaving it to me to slam him for, a lack of productivity. But Mike loves him, so I won't say it. But yeah, he fell off. He fell off. Right.
With all due respect to Wilbon, he was terrific in games 1 and 2. They were up 2-0, and then he had the entire season. He had only 2 games where he had more turnovers than assists, which is not surprising because he's one of the greatest assist turnover guys in NBA history. But 2 of those 2 games were in this series.
Yeah.
And so he did have an injury to his quad, and there's all kinds of debates now about when that injury actually occurred, and I've heard some things about when it occurred, but I don't want to say it without having it confirmed. But that always gets into gray area, like, oh my gosh, is he blaming injury or whatever? So I'm just going to put that away and just say he fell off a cliff after the first 2 games, and the last 5 games, the Mavericks won 4 of them, 4 out of 5. And when you're a team that's won 64 games and you lose 4 out of 5, that's really bad.
Let me just set this up. They were the number 1 team in the NBA. They were 8 clear of the second place team. 8 clear. They won the first 3 games at home in this playoff by an average of 19 points. Chris Paul is now, if I have the statistic correct, and I got it from Matt Kelleher, and I think it's correct, he's the only person in the history of the NBA to be on 5 different teams that lost playoff series with a 2-0 lead, which means do the math. They either had to be swept, as they were last year in the finals by Milwaukee, or they had to lose 4 out of 5. Yeah. He's the only guy, Brian, and his playoff resume is bad. You think James Harden's is worse, but Chris Paul's next, isn't he?
Yeah, that's really hard to overcome. And, you can go to each individual one of those and say, well, this happened and that happened and this and that, but taking in the aggregate, what are you going to do? And, I will say that there is a belief in the NBA that that the shorter you are, the harder it is to win in a late game playoff setting. That when a team can really game plan against you, the size differential becomes hard to overcome. And that, frankly, could, at the end of the day, could be basically just true. That as great as he is and everything that he does, it makes it hard for him against the scheme when he doesn't have the ability to shoot over guys. And he's become one of the greatest angle shooters I've ever seen, where he can shoot the ball crazy angles to make up for the height differential. But that could be at the bedrock of it. And for this, the other thing is he's frequently injured. He's for as impressive as he's been with remaking his body late in his career. He has fragile hands and fragile, quads and hamstrings. And, again, I think that can go to the fact that he's not built the same as some of these other guys who he's playing against. I mean, Luka is, you look at Luka, you look at Chris Paul. Chris Paul is an absolutely elite, uber elite athlete in terms of conditioning. Luka is not. But Luka is 6'8", and Chris Paul is 6 foot. So that could just come down to that. But in this particular series, they really attacked him. And, one of the people that I talked to with the Suns mentioned that, Willie Green, when they played in the first round against the Pelicans, Willie Green is Pelicans coach. He was assistant with the Suns last year and knows Chris Paul well. They were teammates. And it was a very emotional series. Willie was in tears after they lost and everything. But in that series, Willie did what he had to do against Chris Paul because he knows him really well. And that was to absolutely wear him out. They attacked him 93 feet, all the way up and down the court. They bumped him and pushed him and knocked him to the ground because they knew that his stamina isn't really there. And they used this rookie, Jose Alvarado, who's a grade A pest and, literally 15 years younger. And the Mavericks watched it. And the Mavericks came out and did the exact same thing. And part of it could have been just a month of just having people focused on wearing them out. And it worked.
That's not the only problem they had in that particular game. Devin Booker, who Wilbon voted number 2 as MVP, had 3 baskets.
Wow.
It's a home game 7. He had 3 baskets. He's better, he's not as important to that team in a leadership sense as Chris Paul, but he's the best player on that team. He had 3 baskets. Do they have to change something?
I missed that Wilbon voted. He voted him number 2?
Yeah, of course, Phoenix.
Yeah.
Let me just interrupt this and let me just say this one thing, because I was amazed by this. So I thought Phoenix would win this game easily. I know how great Doncic is, but I didn't think there was anything else on that team. I was watching the TNT pregame, and right before that game, Shaq and Kenny picked Dallas, and my eyes lit up. And Charles just said, "I'm rooting for Phoenix." Because he played at Phoenix. He didn't say Phoenix is going to win this game.
Yeah.
It seemed to me, Brian, they all knew Dallas was going to win this game.
I did not think Dallas was going to win the game, and I was around the Suns a lot this year. I didn't cover this last series. I did cover their first round series. I thought the Suns would win. So what that's worth. I really liked Devin Booker, but I did vote Jason Tatum ahead of him on the MVP at 5th. I had a choice at 5th. The league didn't agree with me. Booker was 5th, and Tatum was out. And it'll be interesting when All-NBA comes out in a couple of weeks. I put Tatum on my first-team All-NBA, but if Booker made 5th by the same voters, my guess is Booker's going to make first-team All-NBA. In this series, the Mavericks trapped him a lot, and the Suns didn't have adequate release points. And I don't think Booker is used to, I'm sure he would say, and I really like him as a guy, he's got a great matter-of-fact way. He doesn't stand BS. He would just tell you the truth. He would probably tell you, I've been double-teamed since I was 9 years old. I can handle double teams, and I wouldn't disagree with that. But on an NBA level in the series, he didn't handle the double teams well. Also, Luka and he started trash-talking. And by the way, the Suns are one of the highest level of trash talkers throughout the league. Chris Paul is a relentless trash talker. Booker is a big-time trash talker. And Luka is not, he's here for it. He doesn't mind trash talking and dealing with it. And so he engaged with Booker and then had 2 elite games in Game 6 and 7. And Booker got overwhelmed. So Booker, while I really respect him as a player, I think he's come a long way. He's going to probably have to develop his game a little bit to prepare for those double teams in the future.
Yeah, Doncic is a great player. I think people don't understand this. He's been a pro since he's 14 years old in Europe. There's nothing he hasn't seen. There's nothing really he can't handle. He was consistently brilliant. Me personally, I think the Warriors should be favored over Dallas because I just think they have more stuff than Dallas. But let me get to the other side for a second because I tried to make this point the other day. The Boston-Milwaukee series was by far the best series in the NBA playoffs. Yeah. Every game mattered. Every game mattered. Every game you thought, whoa, this has changed everything. I personally thought Boston should have won 6 out of the 7. But now, I believe this. They are so spent. The analogy I made yesterday, Brian, was to the Dodgers-Giants 5-game playoff series last year. When the Dodgers beat the Giants, they were the best 2. I believe Milwaukee and Boston, the best 2 teams in the league. They were the best 2 teams in baseball. And when the Dodgers beat them, they had nothing left, and they lost to the Braves. They're a better team than the Braves. They had nothing left. I can see Miami winning this, even though I think Boston's a better team. How about you?
Yeah, I can. As someone who covered that series and then had to get down to Miami yesterday, I'm pretty tired. I didn't run up and down the court. And to make matters worse, Robert Williams missed the last 4 games of the series, and basically the Celtics only have 8 guys. And really, if you want to be honest with me, he only really wants to play 7. So those, by the way, those 7 are really good.
Yeah.
But Robert Williams didn't play the last 4 games, and you could see Al Horford slow down and slow down and slow down.
Yeah.
And, like, he played well. It wasn't like it, was like a devastating impact. But Al Horford's 35 years old, and by the end of the series, he was really moving at a different pace. And Marcus Smart is questionable for this game tonight because he hurt his foot. He's got a bad quad. He hurt his quad, missed a game in the last series. He's limping around on that, and now he's got his foot sprained. So now he's going to be, even if he plays, he's going to have a bad leg, basically. I think they're both on the same side, the right side. And, they are, they get a day, they played 36 hours after Game 6, they played Game 7. And then, 48 hours after Game 7, they play Game 1 on the road. It's a big, giant ask. And I do think that they play a level of, I know the Heat will have done all of their research and be ready for the defense, but the way Philadelphia plays defense is nowhere near the way the Celtics play defense. I do think there will be a little bit of a shock period for Miami about how things are tougher in this series. But Tony, you're right. You are right. The Celtics logged a lot of minutes, and they are not healthy. And it's early in this series. I think if Boston can come out of here 1-1, it would be a huge accomplishment.
When you watch them play, again, this series, it's so remarkably better than any other series. When you watch those two teams play, the effort was strikingly more than in other series, don't you think?
Tony, there would be times, this would go both ways, where a team would actually have an offensive possession where they would run a really good set of plays, and they would actually generate like 2 or 3 well-executed maneuvers that would generate a look, and the other team would be so sound on defense. Their rotations and their communication and their effort would be so sound that they would cover it up 3 different times in the same possession. In the NBA, if you execute the first action and just handle your rotations one time and stop a shot, that's pretty good. If you do that on a regular basis, you're going to be a playoff team. These dudes were doing it multiple efforts in possessions, back to back to back to back, over and over and over. And the level of defense that these guys play, and it's not just I'm going to slap the floor and I'm going to take my man in front of me. It's the teamwork aspect of it, because defenses in the NBA now are very complicated. It's not like the old days where they played very basic man-to-man. It's kind of like what's happening with the NFL, where you've got all these complex coverages. Now these guys really have to do a lot of thinking out there because of okay, when these 2 guys set picks for each other, we're going to cover it this way. But when those 2 guys set picks, we're going to cover it that way. And when the pick is up here on the wing, this is what we're going to do with the back end. But when the pick is over there on the top of the key, we're going to do this on the back end. And you're going to cover that guy. And it really breaks down a lot because you're asking these guys a lot to do. But with these 2 teams, it didn't break down. But I have to tell you, Tony, after Game 5, when it was 3-2 in favor of the Bucks, and the Bucks looked like they had the leverage, the Celtics believed that it should have been over. Should have been 4-1 in their favor over.
Yeah,
and
me too. Yeah.
I have covered many series in my career where you have a 2-2 series and then Game 5 is a grinder and the loser puts up the white flag in Game 6. I've seen that happen dozens of times. Game 5, many times, are more competitive than Game 6s. When I got back to Milwaukee for Game 6 and the Celtics were facing elimination, everybody I talked to with them was 100% confident they were winning. And it was not rah, rah, rah. They were like, no, we're in good shape. And it was because the Bucks didn't have Chris Middleton. But the Celtics were like, yeah, we're going to be fine. And they were. They were right.
They were. And Antetokounmpo, the picture of him laying on the ground. The effort, again, you don't see this effort in other series. Now, you may going forward, but you didn't see it. Anyway, all right, we'll stay in touch because I love you, as you know, and I also love you on the show all the time. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, Tony. Take care.
Brian Windhorst, who's simply the best.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot of really good people, but Brian is appropriately critical. You know, he does not put a veneer on the league like so many other people do, because so many people think, well, if I'm critical of the league, you know, people won't like me.
Yeah.
But Brian says, look, this is what happened. Chris Paul, come on. We'll take a break. And he's also, I think he's 37. He's had a great career.
Yeah.
But he's not going to win a ring. He's not going to win a ring. We'll take a break. Richard Justice when we return. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Most of us spend more time every day in our office chair than in our cars or our beds. That's why it's so important to invest in the right chair, so you'll spend those hours with the right level of support and comfort to get the most productivity out of your day. X-Chair will make the time you spend at your desk not only more productive, but it will become your favorite place to sit for any reason. And I said this the other day. You just roll the X-Chair from room to room in your house.
Right.
You keep sitting in it. Not only does X-Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar, spelled correctly today, or DVL, offer the ultimate customized support, but X-Chair can even give you a massage. Plus, it can heat up or cool down depending on what you need. And now, thanks to X-Chair's new FS, the Frank Sinatra 360 armrest. And it's like a Rat Pack deal. You adjust it. You adjust your armrest to the perfect position. All these unique X-Chair features will help the hours at your desk fly by in complete comfort. And that's why I really think you'll love your X-Chair. So do this. Go to xchairtony.com now. That's the letter X, chair, TONY.com. Or you can call 1-844-4. There's an extra 4 there. X-Chair for $100 off your order. X-Chair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. xchairtony.com. Use the code PEOPLE. My throat is catching because, and I've noticed this early in the morning when I go out with the dog and I inhale pollen or
Tree
whatever's
pollen.
out there.
Tree pollen, the strings of it.
And I don't even know what's going on. And then I go to talk and I can't. And I apologize to everybody for these bad reads, but they show a human side of me that I know you like.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show. The Tony Kornheiser Show. I don't want to be good at this. Saying goodbye in death or friendship. It's not a skill I need.
This is Levy, one more time. This is called Berry. They'll be at the new Brooklyn Tavern, Brookland Tavern, in the land of the in-laws, South Carolina, on Thursday, May 26th. We're grateful to Andrew Flowers for sending this stuff in. It's really good. Michael, if bands like Levy want to send us their stuff, how do they do it?
Send us your music by emailing it to us at jingles@tonykornheisershow.com.
Richard Justice joins us now, and I had this moment, Richie, the other day. I got to watch. I really like Justin Verlander. I liked him when he was with Detroit. I like him when he's with Houston. I want to talk about Justin Verlander. He's a member at Kinlock. He should take me and Wilbon to Kinlock at some point because he's from the Richmond area.
You can swing that.
Yeah, he's one of 3 pitchers who are going to the Hall of Fame who are out there pitching now, for sure. He and Kershaw and Scherzer, they're going to the Hall of Fame. Kershaw has pitched with both of them on staffs, which is sort of interesting, actually. And he had Tommy John surgery, and he stayed in Houston when a lot of people have left. He stayed. He underwent the surgery. He's back pitching now. I know that there are some people who think he's sort of a self-promoter, but I will say this, Richie. We've had athletes, we've had current athletes on the PTI show over a long period of time. Not that many, really. But he's the best we've ever had to interview. We've had him 4 or 5 times, and he's always good. How is his arm right now? How many more years does he have? Why did he stay in Houston? And then I'll describe the Juan Soto moment again.
That was a good one. He is better than he's ever been. He's 39 years old, having missed pretty much 2 seasons with Tommy John surgery. He appreciates the game in a way I don't think he ever appreciated before. I don't see him as a self-promoter. I see him as one of those guys that's so focused on his job that on the days he's going to pitch, and this was also true of Roger Clemens, you get out of his way. He breathes
fire. And
Uh-huh.
if you're the pitching coach, you got to be very careful when you go to the mound. He was very difficult to live with some pitching coaches in Detroit till he found a guy named Jeff Jones that he had respect. But he's one of those guys that it's a joy to watch, and he has loosened up to me. He's loosened up more this year at 39 than ever in the past. How long is he going to pitch? AJ Hinch would joke with him like, "Hey, you may pitch to your 40," and Justin would look at him and go, "Buddy, I'm going to pitch till I'm 50." And the more you see him, and the more you see how he's dedicated to his regimen and his craft and all of that, maybe he's going to give it a shot. You know, we talk about the balls being changed every years. Verlander gave me the best line about that. He goes, "I've spent my whole life holding this thing right here, this baseball. Do you think I don't know when it's different than the previous year? Respect, you know, give me a break." But it's one of those times I felt this way when I would watch Clemens pitch. Like, cherish this because you're going to remember this for the rest of your life, that you got to see this guy operate. And let me just say one other thing. When he got there in 2017, the Astros were in first place. They were going to the playoffs. They would eventually win the World Series. But they don't win without him. They had a losing August, and they'd had a losing August. And as Brian McCann, the catcher that year, told me, he says, "That guy walked in this room and he changed everything." There are certain guys that expect to go out and win, and their expectations become your expectations. Players will tell you, like, they care so much, it makes you care more. That's the impact. He started 81 games for the Astros, they won 56 of them, and he's helped transform our franchise. He has a great relationship with the owner, Jim Crane, who's also an avid golfer. I think he sold his house at Pebble Beach, but has another course in Florida, and that's their bond.
Did he stay in Houston because he likes Jim Crane? Because a lot
I
of
think
people
that was
left.
the biggest reason, but I also think the family was comfortable there. At one point, Justin had a home in Lakeland, Florida, in Los Angeles, and they bought he and his wife Kate Upton, they bought a home in Houston. I think he just feels comfortable there. You know, that's the thing we sometimes miss in professional athletes. No matter where they are, they can be in the worst market or the best market. To me, athletes tend to like the comfort of being where they are, and he had certainly grown comfortable in Houston.
He probably wants 300. I don't know if he can get to 300. It's just so hard. He's going to have to pitch 3 full more years to have a chance of getting to 300.
That's
but
way down there.
Yeah, but this is an interesting. I am old enough to remember when John Riggins left for a year. He left football completely, and then he came back, and the great quote is, "I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back." Well, the second half of his career was greater than his first half, and maybe that year had something to do with it with Riggins. I am not certain. But in Verlander's case, is it possible that Tommy John will extend his career?
Oh, no question about it. But I also think it's the type of person he is. They had Scherzer and Verlander together in Detroit. And if you want to talk pitching, if you want to go to the graduate school of pitching, hearing those two guys talk about why they do what they do and how they adjust every year and how they add this and take away this, it is just amazing. Those two guys should do seminars for young pitchers about the approach, the mental approach and the physical approach. And I think in Justin's case, the more he's played, the more he's learned. And I think he's also, I think in his younger years, I don't know if he would admit this, he was really hard-headed. You know, I'm going to throw 100. You know, he started the All-Star game in Kansas City. I don't remember the year, 14, 13, something. And in the first inning, Prince Fielder leans over and goes, "Ver, throw 100." And that's the way he felt. Like, I'm going to show off. I don't think he feels the need to do that anymore, although he still can.
Yeah. Oh, he got the number high when he was pitching. So the Juan Soto moment is in the bottom of the 5th. He has given up no hits through the first 4, but an awful lot of pitches.
Right.
He gives up a couple of hits in the bottom of the 5th, and Soto comes up. There's 2 men on. There's 2 men out. It's 2-0 game at that point. And this is, as I said yesterday, this is the price of admission. I mean, this guy's going to the Hall of Fame, and the other guy may be going to the Hall of Fame. This is the matchup. This is worth the money. And Verlander gets him to hit a comeback or soft tap right back to Verlander. Got him. Soto didn't get the ball out of the infield 3 times against Verlander. I thought there was a certain amount of justice in that because Richie, he's going to the Hall of Fame. We don't know about Soto yet, and that was, I've got to believe, but maybe I'm wrong. You know the guy. I've got to believe he rose to that moment, and that was going to be his last batter, one way or another, right? He was coming out.
Right, and I don't think Dusty Baker would even think of letting anyone else pitch to Juan Soto. You trust him more than you trust anyone on the staff. And great players. I once saw this when Billy Wagner struck out Barry Bonds to end the game on a 100-mile-an-hour fastball, and Bonds called the Houston clubhouse after the game and said, "Hey, buddy, don't get it below 100, or I'll own you." And what he was telling him was, I appreciate that at a time when no one's throwing me strikes. It was your best against my best, and this time you won. And I think that's the way great players look at other matchups against other great players. And I think that was the challenge for Justin. One of the Astros relievers, Hector Neris, said, you know, when you're around the guy every day and you see how he prepares and you see his focus on game day and how he doesn't get rattled by things and he rises to the moment, like facing Juan Soto, it makes you pay more attention to the details of your job. And that's the thing that's pretty hard to quantify, but it's a part of having a great player and a Hall of Famer on your team, and especially for the Astros, who have all these other young pitchers now, and the impact he has on them.
Great talker. He's a great talker. He's a really great talker. By the way, little will be said about this in the middle of the year, I guess. Maybe by the end of the year, people will do some studies on this. But the universal DH has changed baseball this year. And you don't have to look any further than the Phillies, right? You don't have to look any further.
Right. Yeah, but and it also extends careers. It's what it does. You know, there are only a few full-time DHs in the game now. Nelson Cruz will probably be traded, but what it does is allow teams to find another role for an injured Bryce Harper who can't play the outfield.
Yes.
But also, the bigger thing is it allows managers to rotate their players and get everybody off their feet. It's just another weapon that the smart teams use. But in the case of the Phillies, in the case of Major League Baseball, to be able to keep Bryce Harper out there, I mean, that is huge. I mean, I would think if I'm the Phillies, I thank the baseball gods every night for giving us this opportunity. It was a long time coming. The National League fought it. It was a cultural thing on both sides. But let's face it, watching pitchers hit when they don't hit anywhere else, it was not much fun.
No, I understand that. But, I mean, here's, you know, you don't have it in the National League. For Bryce Harper's been in the league 7, 8, 9 years, right?
Right.
He never had it. He never had the opportunity. Now he gets hurt, and now he's banging home runs because he can hit. You know, it's a godsend for Philadelphia, I would think. I was going to ask you why the Red Sox are so bad, and then they won last night. But you got a theory on why the Red Sox are so bad this year? Because the Yankees there's real distance between them now. Yeah.
There is real distance between them, and they did spend some money. The Trevor Story signing hasn't worked out. But it's like all of these things, they just don't have enough pitching. Dan Shaughnessy, our friend, the Boston Globe columnist, has said, you know, they're treating their executive, their head of baseball ops, Chaim Bloom, who I think is brilliant, but he's treated it sort of like Tampa Bay North, and we're not. We have all the money to spend on big money pitchers, and they just haven't done that. And then they have the lingering issue: what are we going to do with Xander Bogaerts? Can we sign him? Are we going to trade him? It just hasn't worked out yet. You know, Kike Hernandez is not hitting. Jackie Bradley Jr. is not hitting. I mean, you keep looking at them and you think, it's going to transform itself. But when you look at that division and you see Toronto and Tampa and the Yankees, you go, well, maybe it's not, because the competition in this division it's the big boy division.
I would say that you know, most years Rob Manfred has had a lot of difficulty looking at his product. But if I'm Rob Manfred this year, Richie, and I've got my 2 LA teams and my 2 New York teams tearing it up, I'm pretty happy right now. I've got my big city set, don't you think?
Yeah, Sandy Alderson, who's the president of baseball operations of the Mets, you at one point worked for MLB, and he said, I'm telling you, there are owners in this game who think the best thing for the game is for the Yankees to win every single year. And I said, I agree. You mean contend? He goes, no, I mean win the World Series, because it raises the level of value for the whole sport. And you just operated the last decade has been, a disgrace. And now they have this guy that's treating the Mets as the Mets ought to be operated. Same thing with the Dodgers. So when you look at the sport, you got the Mets good, the Yankees good, and the Dodgers good. That has to translate to a pretty good national TV rating when the postseason rolls around, and it also just increases the interest in the sport nationwide.
I'm going to add the Angels because the Angels have bigger stars than everybody else. When you watch the Angels, when you watch Ohtani hit, Richie, he gets his money's worth on every swing. I've never seen a swing that powerful. I've never seen anything like that. He's
right.
trying to bang it into the next county, right, every single time, right?
Right. And the great thing is, if they make the playoffs, and it looks like they may, because their pitching has been fantastic. They've drafted well. Syndergaard's been good.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they finally have pitching. But to be able to watch Ohtani and Mike Trout for 10 years, Mike Trout has been one of the best players any of us has ever seen. You ask old-timers that saw Mantle and Mays and Ted Williams, they'll say, this guy is in that conversation. And Ohtani is just, we've never had a player like him before.
No.
That a guy that can do two things, that the skill level to do those two things is through the roof. It's incomprehensible to watch what he's doing, and the humility and just the marketability of the guy. Oh my God, are they fun to watch?
Yeah, they are. They are. Richard, thank you. We'll talk soon. I appreciate it. Richard Justice, boys and girls. We'll take a break. We'll do email and jingle. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Making toast at the beach today takes everything I've got. Toasting a steak in a Proctor Silence, I just don't have a shot. I bought this back in '74. I went online all by myself. I used my Amex card. I bought myself a brand new toaster. It wasn't very hard. But then Bruce Levinson emailed me. He said he'd send me one for free. It's Revolution number 2. But now I don't know what to do. Michael Watt's Revolution 1. Yeah, kid, I bet you do. There's zero chance I'm giving that to you.
Joe Arrow's brilliant now. Zero chance. Totally brilliant.
So you say there's a chance.
He said, I thought I'd kill 2 toasters with one jingle. Somebody requested the Cheers theme on the April 27th podcast, the same day you unveiled your latest toaster story. Joe Arrow. Just absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Joe. Joey the Jammer.
Yes.
You want to do the Bethesda Bagel?
Yes, thank you, Joe. Just brilliant. Bethesda Bagels, brilliant as well. All you need to do is go to BethesdaBagels.com for the location in the DC area nearest you, then pop on in, and you'll be thrilled.
And I recognize these lyrics today. When I get older, losing my hair many years from now. I used to sing that before I lost my hair. Will you still sending me a Valentine, birthday greetings, bottle of wine? If I've been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me? And it's changed to when I'm 84, because I'm looking at that now. Thanks to our guests, Brian Windhorst and Richard Justice. Thanks to our sponsors, MeUndies and X-Chair. Remember, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Odyssey. If you get the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review.
It's graduation season. Go check out JohnnyO.com. Father's Day is just around the corner. Calcutta shorts, great. On and off the
we
course.
love Johnny O.
TK
We do.
Trap.
I wear clothes from Johnny O every single day.
TK Trap, that's the
TK
code?
Trap.
Yeah, because I can't get up.
Just wait till this weekend. We'll have epic
From
stories.
Jennifer Stein. Boulevard Homemade Ice Cream and Gelato, Boynton Beach, zero affiliation. From Old Palm, that's a left, a left, right into the parking lot. Too many David Aldrich moments to name that would blow your mind. That's it. That's the email. Great email.
Directions from the
Mitch
golf
Rupert,
course.
your conversation with Chuck Culpepper about what you got on your list of events you covered as sports writers made me think of my friend Ed Schuyler Jr. You see, Ed and I are from the same hometown, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. I know Ed Schuyler. And after Ed finished a very distinguished 3-decade career as a sports writer for the Associated Press, he returned to Bloomsburg in retirement and decided to cover events and write periodically for the local newspaper, the Press Enterprise, at which I happened to be a 20-something kid just getting started in a mediocre writing career. I picked Ed's brain about writing as often as I could because Ed was the national boxing and horse racing writer for the AP from the late 60s through 2002. So he'd seen and covered it all. Secretariat at the Belmont, he got that. The Thrill in Manila, he got that. The Rumble in Jungle, he got that. Tyson biting Holyfield, he got that. This is a guy who was in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. And when he returned to Bloomsburg, he told us at the paper he'd be willing to cover anything a couple of times a week to get out of the house and continue writing. Well, his first assignment was not very good field hockey game between the two local rival high school teams, had maybe a combined 6 or 7 wins. It was as ugly as you'd expect. After covering the game and filing his story through email, he called our sports editor and just said, I covered Ali Frazier. And he never had to cover field hockey again. Weirdly, the only time he ever talked about the things he had covered with the AP was when I once asked what was being said in the press box when Secretariat was running away from with the Belmont. He said nobody really said anything. We were all waiting for that big red son of a gun, to fall over, because there's no way a horse could run that fast for that long. And for me, that was enough. And this is Mitch Rupert in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I knew Ed Schuyler very well. Not very well, but I knew him. I covered a lot of things with him. That's a great line. I covered all of
If only you were tapped to go to the Belmont.
Yeah, it's the biggest hurt in my life in sports that I didn't get to see Secretariat live in that one. Hal Grossman, Hazlet, New Jersey, just got off a JetBlue flight from Newark to Orlando, sat directly behind Annika Sorenstam.
How about that?
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's do that as a game. Who did you sit behind or sit near at something? That's good. From our friend Alex Teneo in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I found out why the Derby winner is not posting for the Preakness. I already got punched in the face, and he can't make it. Got punched in the face by the guy on the Outrider. Yeah. From Dina in Damascus, who isn't Dr. Ugodich, just Master Ugodich. I have 2 master's degrees. My favorite pharmacist is my daughter. She's Dr. Ugodich, not Doctor in Damascus, in case you were wondering. She's getting married July 23rd, but somehow didn't want to invite you to her wedding. Obviously, I did not raise her well, except for the pharmacist thing, which worked out okay. From Justin Johnson in Arlington, Virginia. I just received a text from my wife that the new coffee maker chairs and piano came in today. I didn't know we were getting a new coffee maker chairs or a piano. From Mitch McCabe in Allen Park, Michigan. Of course Steve Kerr was furious with Dylan Brooks after he took out Gary Payton II. You're supposed to use the code, not break the code. That's funny. It's a good point. From Jess in St. Petersburg, Florida. After hearing Dan Burns' great song announcement about opening for The Who, I thought you might like to know that Leslie Mendelsohn also opened for The Who a few dates in April. We saw them at Amalie Arena in Tampa. Does this qualify as a David Aldrich moment? Also, I must confess that I never make sure I'm wearing white when I go out on my bike. If it has ever happened, it was a coincidence. I hope you and Nick can forgive me, and we can, indeed. From Ken Vastola, or should I just sign it KV, retired RPI professor and signs Fine Wine Geek. My cousin Alan went to RPI, Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, also the home of Adam Oates, hockey player.
Oh, really?
RPI. I'm not a sports writer, so I don't have a long list of historic events like you, but as a lifelong Mets fan, I cherish the day I was in Shea Stadium in 1969 when they clinched the NL East. After the game, we all got to walk on the field. I was in heaven. I was there when they went into first place for the first time. Aside from sports, I was at the March on Washington Jobs and Freedom on August 28, 1963, when Martin Luther King Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. Also in 1969, I saw Janis Joplin live at the Fillmore East. The opening act was the Grateful Dead. There are advantages to being old. I've also seen the original Beach Boys and the Kinks live, and in my own field, electrical and computer engineering, I had lunch in Brighton, England with Claude Shannon. He was a genius whose name should be known as well as Albert Einstein. In his master's thesis, he applied basic logic, Boolean algebra, to the analysis of digital circuits, the foundation of all computers and digital devices we use today. Later, he invented information theory, which is the basis of modern data compression and digital communication that the internet is built on. If that doesn't impress you enough, I have 16 outlets in my very small.
That is impressive.
From Mark Lynch in Canby, Indiana. I saw Dan Dreesen hit an inside the park home run at Riverfront. That's what's in my pocket, Spark. From Rob Lowe, not that Rob Lowe, in North Royalton, Ohio. Can we keep the email section to one silly little game per week? On Monday, we had a little litany of local pharmacies. And on Wednesday, just random announcements from Littles. It's hard to keep up. Anyway, as both a member of the pharmacy profession and the spouse of a pharmacist, I was interested in the conversations about local pharmacies. CVS is nice, and the folks at Walgreens are fine. But let's not forget about those pharmacists who work within supermarkets. The Giant Eagle Pharmacy on Royalton Road in North Royalton is very nice with a friendly staff, but the new pharmacy at the Migers on Broadview Road in Seven Hills is exquisite. Not only are they nice, but they're fast. That's right, a pharmacy that is fast. It does happen. Anyway, to keep up, I'd like to announce that my middle non-masculine child will be graduating from Magnificent High School on May 23rd. Like LeBron, that's coming up. Like LeBron, she'll be taking her talents to South Beach. Unfortunately, the South Beach is on the Ohio River near Xavier University, where she'll be double majoring in English and vocal performance. So any advice to being an aspiring writer will be appreciated. I would have invited you, Michael, and Nigel, but space is limited and I'm realistic. I have very small advice for people that want to be writers. It's very simple. Write all the time. Sit in your house and write. Come up with a word. And just include that word in a sentence, and then do more sentences and include the word. So just write all the time. If you're a singer, you sing all the time. If you're a baseball player, you play baseball all the time. Write all the time. From Christopher Griffith in Wilmington, Delaware. So we're writing short, not necessarily relevant at all emails now. That's it. That's
Okay,
Will from Tuscumbia. I don't know where that is. I'm currently listening to someone talk about listening to the show while they were mowing the grass while I am mowing the grass. And now I am sneezing in twos while mowing the grass. Your wife sneezes in twos?
Threes.
Threes.
Yep, always threes.
You do it in fives. Isn't that what you said?
Fives, tens, whatever.
Yeah, always the pepper for you.
Ken Williams, Birmingham, Alabama. I always sneeze twice. Derek from Akron. I only sneeze in twos, no threes here. Just like Jerry West, baby. That's funny. That's funny. And Derek in Abilene, Kansas, population 6,500. Bonjour, old sport. I've been to Pittsburgh, but I don't have a favorite pharmacy there. You should get one. It's important. If you're out on your bike time, everyone, as always, do wear white.
Who's your favorite pitcher?
Max Scherzer.
What does Max Scherzer do?
Phoenix.
Who's your favorite batter?
Soto.
All right, so that is it for the Tuesday, May 17th episode. And now we move on to the Wednesday, May 18th episode of the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Previously on the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Is there a line on that? Is it a Make It Rain line with the girl from DraftKings? Is there a line on how long you can go? What's the over-under?
It's a back and forth between how long can I go and how long can the hair product hold out. I've got this thing of hair goop that I use, and the longer the hair, the more the goop, and it's really a race against time.
Yeah, I don't have those problems. I used to.
Oh, I'm
but
sorry.
I don't anymore. Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I've got a career. I'm all right.
The Tony Kornheiser Show is on now.
All right, let's start with the fact that our friend Ron Flatter from Las Vegas sent me a text last night, and it said, I'm coming to the BWI, DMV, LSMFT, which tickled me because you have to be old enough to know that LSMFT means Lucky Strike means fine tobacco when they used to advertise for that in the 1950s and 60s. So Flatter said, love to take you and Michael to dinner on Thursday. And I said, I'm unavailable. I'm really sorry. And he said, well, maybe next time. But we like Ron Flatter a lot. And he knows a lot about a lot of stuff, and I'd love to have done it. But
yeah, and I feel terrible now because I'm looking back through text messages and I see the unread dot, and so I'm sorry, Ron. I will text you back.
Oh, you got the same message?
I did.
Yeah, I got it last night. I texted him right away. So we thank Ron Flatter for that. I want to say something now that it's not going to get me particularly in trouble, but I am conflicted on what I'm going to say. This has to do with the sort of wake of the motorboat and Tyler Skaggs. Tyler Skaggs is the Angels pitcher who died a few years back of a drug overdose.
Yes.
And it turned out through the investigations that he was having drugs given to him by people who worked for the California Angels. And Matt Harvey just was suspended 60 days for having supplied Tyler Skaggs with a particular drug. And I understand the law and I understand responsibility. There is a certain nuance here, though, that I think needs to be, and not to change the sentences on any level, but a certain nuance that needs to be understood to see how something like this could happen. The employee has gone to jail. I have lost track of his name. He has gone to jail in the Tyler Skaggs case. And I am not going to in any way endorse giving somebody drugs. I'm not going to do that. But I am going to say that when you're an employee of a team And Tyler Skaggs is one of the players on this team, and a good player and a high-level pitcher. You might automatically feel at your level, I got to keep this guy happy. I don't really want to do this, but, I could lose my job. If a player goes to management and says, this guy's a bum, and it doesn't give the details of it on any level, so I understand there was pressure on that guy. Matt Harvey is a teammate. He's a teammate. I think anybody would stand up and say these drugs are terrible. But the relationship between teammates may create a certain nuanced factor here that sort of persuades them not to necessarily do the right thing all the time. Again, I'm not saying these sentences are wrong on any level, and I'm not saying that anything these people did was right. But I'm saying that there is, you know what I mean? There's like a personal dynamic that goes on here.
Sure.
Between teammates and between employees and everything like that. And somebody could feel, boy, I don't want to do this, but maybe I have to do this. There could be that conflict there. Or do you disagree with that?
No, I think you bring up what is so difficult about this, and I think as you zoom out, you try and look at, okay, what are the outcomes? You're looking at jail time, and you're looking at a 60-game suspension, which is essentially 60 days. And on the other side, you're looking at loss of life. So, relative, the scale of that, you see what weighs heavier. So you're just trying to come to some answer while not sort of final or satisfying, gives you some closure here, but you're then breaking this down into the hierarchy or the sort of org chart dynamics that exists everywhere. The very clear sort of top to bottom, employer to employee, what is the direct chain of command?
The power relationships.
I think what becomes harder to do is say, when does that shift from being sort of that org chart top down to somebody who is operating outside of the rules of their job? And that's where it becomes, is this on the level of friend to friend, or is this sort of in that in between?
Yeah, it's a little bit, again, it's a little bit more nuanced than I think you necessarily see when you look at it to begin with. Eric Kay is the name of the fellow with the California Angels, I believe he's in jail.
I think
or maybe he's appealing.
The judge, I think, just rejected a new trial for him.
Yeah,
I think he's facing a minimum.
He's going
of 20
to jail.
years, yeah.
And in this particular case, Tyler Skaggs, from everything that I've read, knowingly, willfully, eagerly wanted this stuff, and reached out to obviously teammates, obviously employees. It's not one of those things where they hooked him on it in order to take advantage of him. At least it doesn't seem that way to me.
This is just a high-profile example of another wrinkle where you're looking at, medical systems, practices, individuals who are trying to pump these drugs into.
There are manufacturers of these drugs who are being fined billions of dollars and going to jail.
Yeah.
And going to jail. I think everybody would say it's a scourge, on America.
Absolutely.
All of these pain-killing drugs. Anyway, I just thought I would bring some of that up. I have one other thing to say. Well, the Nats disappointed me, as always.
A lot of clutch hitting.
They don't hit the ball at all.
Did any of your pitchers give up 5 home runs in one inning?
No, but yeah, there's no but. 5 home runs in one inning, Evaldi. That's really truly terrible.
Yeah, it's just Cruz was a big threat as you're getting ready to trade him in July. Nice strikeout, bases loaded.
Yeah,
it doesn't appear to be working out so far.
At least he swung.
The Nats are going. Whoever is good is leaving. They'll be sold. They'll be sold in July.
But not to go back to the very point, but so last night before bath time, the boys are running around our living room. The game is on silent in the background, trading positions as they pantomime baseball, hits, plays, running the bases as Josh Bell, Victor Robles playing the outfield, and Juan Soto. And they couldn't be happier.
That's great. That's good for them. Victor Robles actually hit the ball well last night. He hit the ball well. There's one other thing I wanted to get to. Well, I could talk about the hockey results, but I don't know the hockey results. Wilbon, of course, no longer likes hockey because the Blackhawks aren't any good.
Right.
So he's given up on hockey. That was my words. Something happened yesterday that we talked about on the PTI show that I want to talk about now. And I started out the copy that I wrote about it. This is about how the Carolina Hurricanes are not selling tickets to anybody who's a New York Ranger fan, by just denying the ability, given the billing address of your credit card, to buy their tickets. They're not doing it. And my first 3 words, I forgot what they were. but it ended in goober. Small town provincial goobers working for the Carolina Hurricanes are preventing New York Rangers fans from getting tickets. They don't sell out to begin with, but they don't want the Rangers to come in and have a louder presence. It's not just small towns that do this, it's insecure franchises. The Los Angeles Rams did this. Pretty big town, Los Angeles. They just did this to keep the San Francisco 49ers fans out. The Washington football team doesn't do this because if they did this, no one would go to the games.
They're happy to sell anyone a ticket.
Yeah, they don't have
On a suite level?
They don't have fans
Watch
on
out
their
for the
own.
toilets.
So in order, watch out for the raw
expired
sewage.
beer?
Yeah. So in order to have anybody in the gym at all, they have to sell outside. But these tickets, the face value is $100, which is a pretty good deal for playoff tickets.
Yeah.
And so now you have to go to the secondary market. SeatGeek, StubHub, sponsors for this show at some point or other. And the New York fans, I'm sure, if they want to go to these games, they have to be looking at a big number because they have to stay overnight, they have to travel and all of that. They have to get a hotel. And they'll probably do it. They'll probably go to the secondary market. But it's such a cheap stunt. The only way you can get a ticket is if your billing address is in North Carolina, South Carolina, or Southern Virginia, which the Hurricanes claim as their fan base. And if that was their fan base, they would sell a lot more tickets. Hockey is not. You don't grow up with hockey in North Carolina or South Carolina or Southern Virginia. I'm not against expansion of the NHL. I'm not against their team. I'm against the people who are so insecure that they do this. I think Tampa Bay has done this in baseball. I think they've done this in baseball. They don't sell out on their own, and they prevented other people from buying tickets.
It makes you look small, but actually, I like the idea. I think it's very fitting for hockey, though a true hockey place would say we don't have to do that because we give it all to season ticket holders and we're not selling it. The bigger issue is why would people in this zip code or this whatever the square box is, why would they then feel it's okay to turn a profit by selling it on SeatGeek because you are going to get those fans?
Yeah, you have tons of them.
I don't think you can legally prevent that.
Yeah.
I think you create a great opportunity for secondary marketeers.
Yes.
I think you do.
I'm just thinking I had a coworker up in New Jersey, the boarding school, and they moved down to Carolina. But imagine if you still had family or they get that connection to that tri-state area. Be like, no, we are true Hurricane fans. We happen to have that out-of-state card now where we have those if it's a family member who's coming in.
I'm rooting for the Rangers now. I wasn't rooting for the Rangers
But
before.
now you
I didn't care before. But I'm rooting for the Rangers now, and I'm rooting for Igor Shesterkin to shut them out 4 in a row. I'm rooting for that because this is a small-minded, cheap stunt by a bunch of goobers. I did.
I hope they just pan out and show a 60% filled arena.
My
Still
copy
have a lot of
was
Rangers
altered.
fans.
I wasn't allowed to use the word bumpkin. That was apparently considered a slur.
Over the line?
Over the line, bumpkin. I didn't realize that. But,
Well, it makes you think of the brilliant marketing move that Susan O'Malley would do when the Wizards
sell the other team.
Yeah. Hey, would you like to see Kobe Bryant play?
Sell the other team.
Yeah.
Yeah. If your team is good enough, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you don't have to do
it.
It
Just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right, we'll take a break. Andy Beyer.
Yes.
Right, when we return, we'll talk about the Preakness. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the Freshly Read. Their meals are designed by nutritionists, cooked by chefs, then delivered fresh. Other meal deliveries need to be prepped and cooked. Freshly is ready to eat in 3 minutes because no one wants to spend an hour cooking dinner after a rough day at work or at an infuriating commute. Once again, early in the morning, it's the pollen in my throat. At the end of a long day, takeout doesn't have to be your only option for an easy dinner. Why don't you give the Kate endorsement?
Well,
Kate eats the bowl.
I think Kate gets enough of the endorsement. I'm looking at some of the new items on the menu,
okay.
and I want some of these. Forget her. Low Country barbecue chicken. You got the buttery baked chicken empanadas or the jerk chicken bowl. I think she's been a fan of the jerk or the chicken bowls or the bowls that you can get. Like there's a carnitas bowl, I think. Easy to prepare after a long day.
But Low Country, that's your second.
It's right in my alley.
Yeah. Get delicious, chef-made, nutrient-packed meals delivered straight to your door. There's no cooking required. Fresh, never frozen, ready to heat and enjoy in just 3 minutes. Choose from over 50 nutritionist-designed entrees, like their classic steak peppercorn, multi-serve sides like their masterful mac and cheese, or their new line of plant-based meals. It's a hard sell for me, a plant-based meal.
But you like the peppercorn steak, don't you?
Yes, I do. That's fine. But I'd like to try these
style cauliflower.
I'd like to try these things that you just mentioned.
They look good.
I'd like to do that. Stop stressing about
Not
dinner.
plant-based.
Right now, Freshly is offering listeners to this high-quality podcast, listen to this number, $125 off your first 5 orders when you go to freshly.com/Tony K. Let me repeat this. That's $125 off at freshly.com/Tony K. So don't be stupid on this one. Use the code.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
I'll just read this. Your friend Paulie Coconut's here. I've been filling in on bass with a duo called Mission Road out of Harpers Ferry, West Virginia. I've enclosed 2 original songs that we played, both written by the band's keyboard player, Elliot Simon, and sung by the lovely and talented Christina Alexander. The first song, Keep On Doing, was recorded live at Prohibition Hub in Hagerstown, Maryland on April 30. I played bass on that track. We love Paulie Coconut.
Yes, we do.
It's called Keep On Doing. There'll be another song later, and it plays in the great Andy Byer. We're going to talk about the Preakness, but you cannot talk about the Preakness without talking about the Kentucky Derby and the notion that the Kentucky Derby champion, Rich Strike, is not running. He's not running in the Preakness. Andy, are you surprised by this? Do you have an explanation by this? Are you charmed by this?
I'm not surprised because in the modern day, so many trainers just elect to run in the Derby and skip the Preakness, or vice versa. I mean, they generally don't like to bring horses back in just 2 weeks for 2 very tough races, and so I mean, it was a rational decision that Rich Strike's people made. The flip side of the coin, one of his main rivals here, early voting, chose not to run in the Derby, so he would be fresh for the Preakness. So that's the modern day. But we should talk for a minute about the Kentucky Derby because it was one of the most unbelievable races you'll ever see.
This is what I wanted you to explain what happened in the Derby and whether or not in your lifetime it's the greatest upset you have ever seen.
I reviewed my memory files, and I would consider it one of the 2 most inexplicable results that I've ever seen in racing. One of them was the victory of Mind That Bird in the 2009 Derby, and the other was Rich Strike. You can look at this horse's past performances till you're blue in the face and not see a glimmer of logic behind him. I even made a little bet that he'd finished 20th in the field of 20. Horses aren't machines, and sometimes they will improve without notice, without an obvious explanation. It happens regularly in run-of-the-mill races, and it happens in the Derby. The first reaction I think I had, and most people had, is, well, this is such a fluke that he'll never do it again. He'll finish last in the Preakness or wherever he runs. Then I thought back to the other impossible long shot, Mind That Bird, who won the Derby amazingly, came back in the Preakness and ran a tremendous race. Big speed figure, narrowly lost a photo finish to a champion. So, horses can get good and then stay good. I wouldn't have thrown Rich Strike out in the Preakness, and I think, I don't think he's going to be disgraced in the Belmont either.
See, this is interesting. I have written down questions. My next question was to ask you, will he ever win another race? And then it was going to say, why even run him in the Belmont and devalue him? Why not say, that's it, you're done right now?
No, I would say devaluation is not an issue. Let's say everybody is so disbelieving. I mean, breeders are not lining up, to syndicate Rich Strike for stud duty. I mean, he's got to, if he comes back and wins the Belmont, or even kind of runs creditably in it, that will enhance his reputation. But these people seem to like the sport. I'm sure they'll run him all season as long as he stays healthy.
There's a larger issue here that you alluded to. It has nothing to do with Rich Strike. It has to do with the fact that the Triple Crown is set up 3 races in 5 weeks. You win the Derby, you go 2 weeks. You win the Preakness, you go 3 weeks to the Belmont, which is 1.5 miles. Is this, if people don't send horses that win to the next race, Andy, do they have to change that? You can't change that. It's 150 years. You can't change it.
Well, they need to change it. I mean, there were some. I know that one of the issues with the Preakness was that a former executive there told me was that they didn't want to move the race because that would move it back toward Memorial Day weekend, the start of beach season in Maryland, which would detract from all the screaming college kids, getting drunk in the infield. But I think that the timing has to be changed, and you could you move the Preakness back 1 or 2 weeks, and run the Belmont on the 4th of July, something like that. This isn't rocket science, to change these dates.
Okay.
But the Preakness is just dead as a serious race. Not only did Rich Strike defect, but so did the third place finisher Zandon, who would have been one of the favorites here. And you've got a pretty uninspiring field of 9.
Yeah, Baffert's horses are both not in this. What happens to those horses, and what happens to the famous Tim Dactine, who did not come through?
Tim, I wasn't shocked that those horses failed in the Derby. The way the Derby was run, there was such a fast early pace, set by a horse from Dubai who was like just a tearaway sprinter, that all the horses close to the lead collapsed. I mean, everybody in the race rallied. That's one of the reasons that Rich Strike was able to win, and the 2 Baffert horses were among the many that sort of got sucked up in the hot pace.
Okay, the race itself. The guy starts on the far right. He ends up on the far left. If you are Epicenter or Epicenter's rider or Epicenter's trainer, and you are passed on the rail in the last furlong, you have to say, what? How did this happen? I had this Derby on my racket. How did this happen? Am I right, Andy? That was so weird.
Yeah, I don't think it was the fact of getting through on the rail that made a difference. I mean, Epicenter, he made his move to the lead on the turn when he had to go around a couple horses. He ran kind of a normal race, and there was no indication that that being on the rail was a big tactical advantage. It was just, but the jockey, the jockey on Rich Strike just ran an incredible race. I mean, it was quite something to see. Post-winning the rail.
It was tremendous. I'm interested. You thought the horse would finish last, so you didn't have one of those small moments where you said, I'll put $2 on this horse. Because the
I mean,
payouts, the payout on the
who was-
superfecta was incredible.
Anybody who's celebrating the Derby said, well, I'll throw him in for a few dollars. No, nobody was making speeches about how they liked Rich Strike.
So we're down from 20 horses in the Derby to 9 in the Preakness, which is pretty common. Sometimes the Belmont has 5 or 6. There is a winnowing of the field. Does that make it easier to handicap? Because now I'm going to ask you who you like.
Epicenter is definitely the horse to beat in this race. I'm kind of sorry the race came up so thin because he was the best horse in the Derby. With that hot pace, everybody who was on or near the lead collapsed. Epicenter stalked the leaders. I mean, he made what now you could look at and say it was maybe a little premature move as he hit the gas to get the lead turning into the stretch. All the other horses who were there at the finish just made late runs picking up the pieces. So I thought Epicenter ran a commendable race in the Derby. I mean, I wish he had some more credible opposition because I would have, if I could have gotten 2-1 or 5-2 on him, I would have made a bet. But he's going to be a pretty strong favorite.
All right, we will talk to you in front of the Belmont when apparently Rich Strike is going to run again, and maybe we will get back into that drama because, as you say, but this is one for the ages. I mean, that horse, anybody who follows horse racing at all is still shaking his head, right?
Right, and it really seemed to captivate a lot of people. I mean, just kind of national non-sports TV shows. Everybody was talking about the Kentucky Derby because of this crazy horse.
Well, they talked about that. They also talked about it because the guy on the outrider on the pony, had to punch him in the face 10 or 12 times to get him to stop eating the pony. I mean, I've never seen anything like that. Andy, you must have seen that before, but I've never seen that.
I can't remember it happening very often.
Very well. Thanks, Andy. Talk soon.
Bye, Tony.
Andy Beyer is just the best. We'll take a break. Steve Sands will join us when we return. He's, I believe, at the PGA, Southern Hills in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
This is the Tony Kornheiser Show.
This is the Sunday ad. You'll never dread doing lawn work again once you team up with Sunday. Their lawn care products are quick and easy. You won't even have to go to the store. Everything is delivered right to your door. Everyone wants a beautiful lawn without all those harsh chemicals. That's why this year you should use Sunday. It's made with ingredients you can actually pronounce, like seaweed, iron, and molasses. And the best part is it works. Does your lawn have weeds, bare patches, or pet spots? Sunday can help you solve all of those problems and more the easy way. They've got everything you need from fertilizer to seeds to weed control. It's all delivered right to your door. You have this. You get this.
Yeah, and our lawn's looking beautiful right now, but I have a challenge because I know they also do some of the mosquito deleto and some of the bug dooms because I got to take care of some of those issues. I need something to get rid of the deer. The deer are lying down in the grass.
How about a hunter with a gun?
It's a little different read.
Yeah.
Different read.
Or just go out. Is there nothing like a scarecrow for deer?
What kind of scarecrow would scare? These deer have grown up in the city, Dad.
Yeah, they're not afraid of anything.
I don't know. Your yard is your personal oasis. It deserves the best. It does. Sunday helps you grow a beautiful lawn, control pests, and fight weeds without the toxic stuff. If Sunday cared about you, they'd send somebody to get rid of the deer.
The scarecrow, maybe.
That's what I'm thinking. Sunday's custom lawn care is effective and super
Made out of
easy.
seaweed and molasses.
Just go, a big thing of molasses.
Yeah, there you go.
A big jar. Just go and get Sunday.com. Put in your address. Their lawn analysis tool does the rest. They use soil and climate data to create a personal nutrient plan delivered to your door right when you need it. Sunday's lawn care products are made with your family in mind. And Sunday is offering listeners to this high-quality podcast 20% off. Full season plans start at just $129, and you get 20% off that when you visit getsunday.com/Tony at checkout. That's 20% off your custom plan at getsunday.com/Tony. Don't be dopey. Do it. And if you have deer, maybe, just maybe, they'll send you a giant statue of a hunter. And the deer will say, oh, let's get out of here.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show. The Tony Kornheiser Show.
this is sent us by Paulie Coconuts. This is a song called I Used to Drink Whiskey by, what's the name of the band that he's with? Mission Road.
Mission Road, that's right.
He writes, the second song, I Used to Drink Whiskey, was recorded live at, and get this name, Mountaineer Meat Smokers in Martinsburg, West Virginia on May 7th.
I wonder what they serve.
Mountaineer Meat Smokers. Robert Murphy is featured on the lap steel guitar. We're so grateful to Paulie Coconuts. Michael, if people like Paulie Coconuts want to send us their original music or music they're affiliated with their friends, how do they do it?
Send us your music by emailing it to jingles@TonyKornheiserShow.com and maybe throw in a smoked turkey leg.
Yeah, that would be good. We'd like to have that.
Yes.
So Steve Sands joins us now. Before we get to Sands, I'm going to read this. It says, while with other littles sharing where they went to high school and the recent talk of Bruce Springsteen, I must share this connective tissue with you in the podcast. I went to Woodward High School in Rockville, Maryland. I'm a classmate and friend of two wonderful friends of the show. First on the list is Gary Braun. Gary was always one of the great guys in the school, although I can attest to his challenge with basic math. Second was our very own real-life Bruce Springsteen, Steve Sands. Steve was our white t-shirt and blue jeans Jeep driving friend in high school. What many may not know is that Steve was likely the best place kicker in the school's history, and he was money from 45 yards out. He was always one of the good guys. I hope that knowing these two come from the same high school will help trump the fact that so did Dan Snyder. Additionally, I want to share what your show means to some of us out here. As a pastor, recently I was leaving the hospital after spending time with someone who had passed away. It was a devastating situation where I was able to be with this person as they shared their last breath. As I left the hospital, it was a little emotional, as you could imagine, and I needed an outlet to help take me some steps forward. So I tuned into your podcast to hear Greg Garcia break down the Longwood men's basketball team, and it made me laugh as I held back some tears. Your podcast makes a difference for some of us littles out here, and I wanted to make sure you were all aware. Blessing, Scott Bach Hansen was a pastor. I'm sure you know that name. I had no idea you were a place kicker. I had no idea. You never have mentioned that.
Well, why would you? You know, it's amazing. You catch all these touchdown passes and all these kinds of things, and everybody remembers one kick you made in high school. It's amazing. I wasn't a very good kicker, but I do remember Scott Bach Hansen. Absolutely remember. I did not know he's a pastor now. That's amazing.
So wait, so you were a football player in high school?
I played football and basketball, yeah. So
and did you...
Our senior year in high school, if you really want to know this, you really care.
I do.
Our senior year in high school, Woodward closed the year I graduated. So in 87 was the last year. WJ, Walter Johnson, was the biggest rivalry. It was maybe a homecoming game, whatever it was, biggest rivalry. Comes down to the end. I played soccer when I was a kid before, going to high school. And the coach always wanted me to kick field goals because, nobody else could kick field goals. I played soccer before I played football. And I made a kick against WJ to win the game. Now, it takes a lot to get the ball down the field. It takes a lot. It takes a guy who snaps the ball, holds the ball. Steve Mead was the holder, and we made the kick. It's a team effort, not an individual pursuit. So I appreciate Scott Bach Hansen saying that I was a good kicker, but I really wasn't that good.
Did you, in fact, dress like Bruce Springsteen? Is that true?
Well, I wore a lot of T-shirts and jeans, just like anybody else. I still am, and Liz and I share this together. You know this. I'm a massive Springsteen fan, always have been. And back then, Bruce was, like sports and music. Bruce was my music. Sports was my world. And Springsteen was my music, and I don't know if I dressed like him or not, but I did wear a lot of T-shirts. I did not have any goop in my hair, and like Brian Windhurst was talking about yesterday, and slick back hair, and I didn't look like Springsteen. I don't know, but I do wear a lot of T-shirts.
This is wonderful when we find stuff out about people like this after years and years and years. It makes me so happy.
Well, what's funny is when I was back for the Wells Fargo Championship, I was talking to a couple of high school buddies of mine, and we were joking about the exact same thing. I guess they're rebuilding Woodward High School now. It's a hole in the ground now, right off Old Georgetown Road. They're rebuilding a beautiful new high school now. And a buddy of mine was like, this field goal, that field goal. I'm like, it's amazing. You catch touchdown passes and run routes, and you're a quarterback, and you return punts and kicks. All they remember you 35 years later is that you made one kick your senior year, and it was like you didn't play anything else. Play basketball too. Nobody cares. It's only about that one kick which makes me laugh. It's nice. It's fun.
Yeah, if you want, anytime you can segue into glory days. If you want, you can do that. It's just you can do that. If you, all right.
With the baseball bit in my back pocket.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the subject at hand, which is the PGA, and let's get to the question at hand, which is Phil Mickelson. What do you hear? What do you hear about him? When, if at all, do you think he'll play again?
Gosh, I don't know. I thought for sure that this would be the best avenue for him to get back into the fray. It's the most protected you can be is at a major championship in this sport. There's a little bit less access at a major championship. I thought you could sit on the podium or stand behind a microphone, take sunglasses and hat off, and just take questions, get it over with, and go play the first round, talk to the media one more time about it, and then that's pretty much it. Whether he makes the cut or not on Friday, Phil Mickelson's back, and here we go. And he didn't do that. And I thought for sure this would be the best place for him to come back, but he's not ready yet, Tony. It could be that Live Golf event on June 9th outside of London. If that is the first time he comes back into the world of golf publicly, that is going to cause a big ruckus because he probably will never play another PGA Tour event if that's the case.
What do you think the odds are on that? I mean, Phil Mickelson is not stupid. He'll weigh all this out in his mind. What do you think the odds are that he actually will do that?
I mean, at this point, Tony, I think he might.
Wow.
Unless he's just never going to play again, which I just can't imagine. It'll be 51. Let's see, 52. I just can't imagine that he would never play again. But with the PGA Tour, Tony, taking that hard line and not allowing its members, its players, to get a release to compete in that event beginning June 9th outside of London. If a PGA Tour member plays there, he is subject to suspension and maybe indefinitely. Or you can just leave the PGA Tour and go play in that, Live Golf Series, which Phil could opt to do as well. I just don't know. Honestly, I cannot think of what his on-ramp is now that he didn't play in this event where he's the defending champion here in Tulsa. I don't know. I don't know where he's going to come back.
So the book is out. The Shipnook book is out.
Yeah.
I don't know if anything more is in it. I saw him the other day on the Golf Channel on Live from the PGA. I don't know if there's any scandalous thing in it. But there is some talk that the gambler, Billy somebody or other, whose name I know you know, that he's writing a book and that he has scores to settle with Phil Mickelson. And then there was this thing the other day with Gary McCord that I read that was in the New York Post, that Gary McCord would bet Phil Mickelson during games about whether he would make a putt or not, and throw money off the tower if Phil made the putt. To me, that's just part of the culture of golf. I mean, throwing a $20 bill out of a tower because a guy made a 12-footer does not strike me as something you go to jail for. It's just nothing. But what is your sense of what is yet to come?
Well, Billy Walters is the guy. And Billy is a very famous sports gambler in Las Vegas. Maybe the biggest sports gambler of his era out in Las Vegas. Billy's book is going to be coming out shortly as well, and if Billy chooses to write some of the things that we heard that he might write about last year when he started doing this, those will be damaging as well to Tiger. But the Gary McCord gambling,
not to Tiger, to Phil.
Sorry?
Gary McCord. You said to Tiger. You meant to Phil. It would be damaging to Phil. Yeah. Okay.
The Gary McCord, gambling thing. Who cares about that? I'm with you on that. That's the golf gambling. Who cares? I think it's funny. Actually, I didn't know that. Having sat in that same seat in the booth or in a tower with Gary McCord, I find that fascinating. But the whole thing is just crazy, Tony. He's an iconic. I know you don't love that word, iconic. He is an iconic golfer, top 10 player of all time. The oldest winner of a major championship. I heard you talking, I think it was yesterday's show, when you watched live from the night before, and Alan Shipnuck was on the set, he conducted himself well, and Rich Lugner asked the right questions, and then Randall Champlin and Brad Faxon came on. The whole thing, the whole segment was fantastic television. I just can't believe that this has taken place with Phil Mickelson. This isn't a random, professional golfer. This is, the second most popular player and best player of his generation. Literally a top 10 player of all time, an absolute legend in the sport, and he's just like vaporized. It's like gone. People talked about it on Monday and Tuesday. I don't think anybody's going to talk about it today at Southern Hills. And then moving forward, the next 4 days, he's the defending champion, and no one is ever going to see him or hear from him, and it's just sad. It's terrible.
I'll just say this briefly about the gambling stuff. Everybody sort of knows that Michael Jordan likes to gamble. Michael Jordan, whenever he wants to get in a golf game and you want to say, well, how much are we playing for? Michael Jordan famously says, whatever makes you nervous. Michael Jordan can do that because Nike pays him and should pay him hundreds of millions of dollars a year because they don't sell a single shoe ever without Michael Jordan. So when you have these astronomical numbers being thrown around, you need to understand how much money certain people have. Phil Mickelson makes 50, 60, 80 million dollars a year on endorsement. So if he gambles and loses $10 million a year, it's shocking to all of us, except it's not to him, right? Because he has that kind of money, and that's what he likes to do. Barkley talks about this all. Barkley loves to gamble. It's just...
Listen, he probably makes somewhere, I don't know, from 2010 to 2014, but, there are recent numbers that have said Phil has made upwards of $50, $60 million a year. And let's see, in 2010, Tony, he won his third Masters, okay? So he was at the height of his popularity and earning potential. I'm not saying that losing $10 million a year for 4 consecutive years in gambling is a good thing. But when you make $60 million a year and you lose $10 million, that's 1/6, right, of your salary. If you make $100,000 a year and somebody goes out and loses, somewhere between $7,000 and $15,000 of that $100,000 in gambling, you probably wouldn't go bananas. You hear $10 million a year for 4 straight years, and you go bananas. So context does matter. I agree with you.
Yeah. All right, let me get off Phil for a second and get to Tiger. Wilbon, of course, expects Tiger to fail miserably in this, but Wilbon didn't really think Tiger would get out in the Masters. What are your expectations for Tiger?
Wilbon also voted Devin Booker second in the MVP race, evidently.
3 baskets at home. 3 baskets. Game 7 at home. Nice job. What are your expectations for Tiger?
Somebody was asking me last night about this. I don't think he's going to make the cut. I don't know. I don't know why I think that. It's a different cut to make than the Masters, Tony. There are not 89 players in the field.
Best field in golf. It's the best field.
156 players are here. Take away the 20 because of the club pros. I'm not poo-pooing that, but they're not. They don't have a chance to win this thing. That's 136 players. It's a lot different than 89 players, which you play against at Augusta. It's a big golf course. It's going to be demanding. The wind is going to be way up on Friday, especially in the afternoon. Tiger's playing early Thursday, late Friday, which with the forecast doesn't look like the better side of the draw. It doesn't look like you want to be on the golf course in the afternoon late on Friday because of the weather. I don't know. I don't have high expectations for him. He has not played a lot of tournament golf, Tony, obviously. I know he played those 4 days at Augusta, and he's stronger now. His ball speed's up, and that's good. I just think that there's a rust factor when you're playing against the best players in the world on a golf course where you're not as familiar like you are at Augusta National. So I do not have high expectations for Tiger this week.
If he were, if he doesn't make the cut, that's not progress. What would you consider progress for Tiger Woods at the end of this tournament?
Progress would be making the cut and somewhat competing, say like a top 20, that kind of thing. At Augusta, played pretty well the first couple of days, Tony. Remember, he shot 71 that first day. And then on the weekend, he just ran out of gas, physically and mentally. Putted terribly. That's a mental thing. Because he was so tired physically, he just lost his concentration mentally. Shot a pair of 78s, has never putted that poorly at a major, let alone Augusta, on Saturday and Sunday. Progress to me would make the cut like he did at Augusta, and then play better on the weekend. Not get tired. These are all things that you would expect to happen based upon where he's been and where he is now. But to not get tired, to be able to finish out 4 days and see your play on the rise, as opposed to seeing it fade away. Because let's face it, he wants to play in Boston in a few weeks, at Brookline for the U.S. Open, and then the real shot at winning a major this year would be at St. Andrews, which is in 2 months. And he needs to see some progress, and that would be progress if he played better on the weekend than he did at Augusta, and then the stamina was back.
So we have talked about Tiger and Phil, who are unlikely to win this tournament. One not playing, one maybe doesn't make the cut. Of the more contemporary golfers, of the golfers who might win, I assume that the greatest amount of pressure in this might be on Scotty Scheffler, coming out of the Masters, hasn't really played since then. I guess he played last week. I assume the pressure would be on him. Is he the guy that people want to look at, or do we just think, no, it's on different players?
Yeah, I think it's on different players. I don't think people are looking at him just yet, Tony. If he wins this week, look out. Now you're talking about a guy who's not just on a heater. You're talking about a guy who's literally, progressing to the point of pure greatness. People don't win back-to-back majors in this sport often. If he does that this week, then we'll be talking about him way more at the U.S. Open next month, outside of Boston and Brookline. I think people who will succeed this week, based upon the way the golf course is set up, are people who have the best short games. Scotty happens to have a fabulous short game. I just don't see him winning back-to-back majors. I see, other guys performing well here. I think John Rahm is perfectly suited for this golf course. Jordan Spieth has a chance, Tony, to become the 6th player in the history of the sport to win a career Grand Slam this week. He's won each of the other 3 one time. His last major win was at Birkdale, the Open Championship over in England, and that was in 2017. But his last 2 starts, Tony, he has a win at Hilton Head and a runner-up finish last week. Last week almost doesn't count because it was such a shootout. You normally would never see that at a major championship or an event, which the golf course, was a little bit more difficult. But he still was a runner-up last week. His short game is ridiculously great. If the putter cooperates, he's hitting the ball beautifully. If the putter cooperates, Tony, Jordan Spieth has a great chance this week, and he's playing alongside Tiger and Rory McIlroy tomorrow morning at 9:11 Eastern Time. How about that for a grouping on the first day of the major championship? Spieth trying to win the career Grand Slam. McIlroy trying to get himself back into the fray of the best players in the world in a major championship. He hasn't won one in 8 years. And, of course, the circus that is Tiger. There's going to be a lot of energy on the ground here in Tulsa tomorrow morning.
That's interesting because those guys can handle that. There are other golfers who would be unnerved by playing with Tiger, and those guys will be fine, right? They'll be fine with that.
I totally agree. And Tiger has made it that way, Tony. We've talked about this before, me and you, on and off the air.
Yeah.
When Tiger was at his best, he pummeled Phil and Ernie and VJ and David Duval and Retief Goose and all those guys, and I mean iced them on the golf course. Never made them comfortable. Never made them feel as if he even realized that anyone else was in the group. Nowadays, Tiger's much more congenial, much more emotional on the golf course, much more acknowledging of the people and the guys he's playing with, because he's allowed himself to get much closer to today's players. He's kind of like the big brother to all these guys, especially the South Florida guys who live in that Jupiter area where he lives. Spieth will be very comfortable in that group. Might not play great, but he'll be very comfortable because Tiger will allow him to be comfortable. And McIlroy, the same thing. McIlroy was there, remember, when all the fans were coming down at East Lake on the 18th hole in that final round when Tiger won for the 80th time in his career on the PGA Tour, the Tour Championship. Rory played in that group with Tiger and said he learned a lot that day and also learned how to become more comfortable with Tiger in the same group that particular day. So Rory and Jordan will be perfectly fine on Thursday and Friday. They might not play great, but it won't be because they're uncomfortable. They'll be perfectly comfortable with Tiger on Thursday and Friday.
Thank you, Stephen. And next time we see you, we'll get a football out. We'll just have you kick for us and we'll film it. It'll be great.
I don't think I could even get an extra point over the bar right now at my age 53, but you know.
You never know. You never know.
Got Bob Hansen with an email. Wow.
Yeah, that's
Forgetting
good.
that name. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Sands, boys and girls.
You got it.
We'll take a break. We will have email and jingle when we return. I'm Tony Kornheiser.
You're listening to the Tony Kornheiser Show.
Makes me so happy. That's the actual Mizzou marching band. It just makes me so happy. Nigel, you want to do Bethesda Bagel?
Yes, Bethesda Bagels, we love them. You will as well. All you need to do is go to BethesdaBagels.com for the location in the DC area nearest you. Then pop on in and you'll be thrilled.
Love the lyrics today. Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids. In fact, it's cold as hell. And there's no one there to raise them if you did. And all this science I don't understand. It's just my job 5 days a week, and then you sit back and you hear Elton John go, "Rocket Man."
Yes.
Thanks to our guests today, Andy Byer and Steve Sands. Thanks to today's sponsors, Freshly and Sunday. Remember, you can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, and Odyssey. Get the show through Apple Podcasts. Please leave us a review. I'm going to read a very long email now because I do think it's worth it. Michael, don't we think this is worth it? This is about the great zucchini. It comes to us from Eric Henning. It says, it's Eric Henning, who would love to be the official parlor magician of the Tony Kornheiser Show with my very own David Aldrich moment.
Careful what you offer.
Not only do I know Eric Knaus, a.k.a. the Great Zucchini, but I co-wrote his very first book for professional entertainers, Kid Show Rockstar. I can tell you a couple of things about the Great Zucchini, and I realize I'm adding parenthetically. This is so local, but I'm taken by it. First of all, he is the most successful children's entertainer in the United States, and has been for some time. He books up months in advance. In fact, if you live in any of the better neighborhoods in the D.C. area and you do not have the Great Zucchini at your child's birthday party before they start kindergarten, child services will come and take your children away. It's the law. What is Zucchini's secret? He's a 50-year-old toddler. He bonds with toddlers and preschoolers because he knows how they think. Watching him with kids is astonishing. He gets their sense of humor. Sometimes the parents don't understand what he's doing, but they always appreciate that the kids love him. I have a story that illustrates this. One day I got a panicked phone call from Zucchini. Eric, I need you to cover a show for me. My car broke down on I-95 and I can't get there. I said okay, and I headed to the Potomac Community Center for a 4-year-old girl's birthday party. On the way, he called me again and said he had a ride and he was about 20 minutes behind me. When the mother came out and saw that I was not the Great Zucchini, she turned ashen. I said to her, I've got good news and bad news. Zucchini's car broke down, but he's only about 20 minutes behind me. She began breathing again, and the blood returned to her face. When she told the kids that the Great Zucchini was not going to be there on time, there erupted a wail that I can only describe as the kind of keening that must be present at a Joycean Irish wake. I've never heard anything like it, and I pray I never will again. Then she told them he would be there, and the cheer that went up sounded like VE Day. Now, at that point, I'd been entertaining children professionally for about 30 years, and I thought I knew my stuff. I was about to get schooled. I did my show for about 20 minutes, was keeping the kids happy, everything's going fine, and then Zucchini shows up. Picture this, he's covered in sweat, dirt, and grease from trying to fix his car. His t-shirt is torn, he's wearing gym shorts with dirty socks and sneakers. He's dragging a huge suitcase that's missing a wheel, so it's scraping against the floor. He looked like somebody had taken a hobo off a rail car and told him to do a kid's party. We turned the page. But the kids all knew him, and when they saw him, it was as if Jack Kennedy, Barack Obama, and Jesus had all showed up in the same room at once. They went nuts. I stepped aside and watched him mesmerize these kids for 20 minutes with his wonderful physical comedy, and then another 20 minutes playing games. It was astonishing. And that's when I knew I had to learn from this guy. Isn't that great from
That's-
Eric Henning?
That's tremendous.
That's just great. Love it. Yeah, let's get to a couple of other things here. From Matt Rousse in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. That is the home of Lawrenceville Prep, where Bob Ryan ran, if I'm not mistaken. Dear Mr. Tony, I heard you say that if a player on the Nats wears number 58, he won't be around for long. Don't be so dismissive. Former team chemistry leader Jonathan Papelbon wore number 58, so even if this new guy in 58 isn't around much, it's still worth watching to see if he chokes Juan Soto. It's a great email. I did not know that. Jason Fish, Broomfield, Colorado. As a resident adjacent to Arvada, Colorado, let me say the second A is pronounced like it is in Hat. Second, let me be one of the first littles to welcome the great John Fitzpatrick to the Mile High region. Hopefully we'll get to see him at the next Ed Bud Happy Hour. Again, we wish John all the luck in the world. From Carl in Oswego, New York. I am fact-checking the Syracuse Post-Standard. Attached is a picture used in the Sunday paper that is captioned Felix Cavalieri, Dino Danelli, Eddie Brigatti, and Gene Cornish of the Rascals. Can you confirm that these are the correct Rascals? Apparently, Felix has just published his memoir, and he attended Syracuse University at the same time as Jim Boeheim. Don't tell Salizza. From Dave Kroll. Not Dave Grohl.
Not Dave Grohl.
Dave Kroll from Syracuse, New York. My sister and her significant other related by marriage have a beautiful home in Cooperstown, New York that they rent out every year during induction weekend. It sleeps 10 and it's always rented by an incoming inductee for their family to stay in because, as you know, the inductees stay at the Otasaga Hotel. This year, Tim Kirchin's family is staying there. Does this count as a David Aldrich moment? Also, they have a register book there that all the players sign, like Ricky Henderson, John Smoltz, Ken Griffey Jr. So what's the over-under? Mr. Kirchin signs it. Also, I will let Sis know to stock the house with avocados.
Leave a bowl.
Yeah. I drink coffee, not tea. Maybe that's why I stink getting out of the sand as well. From John Donnelly in Enfield, New Hampshire. Did the Kentucky Derby winner start a new trend of officials punching champions just after victory? Going forward, will the Butler cap and ceremony include Fred Ridley looking to get in some licks? Will Gary Bettman deliver a beatdown before handing over the Stanley Cup? I'll hang up and listen. From Pat Murphy. My name is Pat Murphy. I'm a biology teacher from Downers Grove, Illinois. I've been listening to your show for a while now. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. We're studying evolution in class right now. We're on the topic of Tiktaalik, one of the coolest transitional species to be discovered. Tiktaalik, I don't know this, is hypothesized to be one of the first organisms to move with four limbs on land, and whom all other four-limbed organisms are related to. Discovered by Neil Shubin of the University of Chicago. I got to see him talk at our school a while back. Just thought you'd like a little science. If there's not already an official biology teacher at the Tony Kornheiser Show, I'd love to be considered. Here's hoping the White Sox get it done this year. You can do this. I was not a good biology student.
No, biology for no majors, right?
I was from Brett
Raise
Boyle.
your hand.
From Brett Boyle in St. Louis. On last Monday's show, Chuck Culpepper mentioned the only person he came across who bet on Rich Strike in the Derby was a woman who said she did so because she, quote, felt sorry for him that no one else was betting on him. Who knew Phil's mom is now handicapped in the horses? Sad news from Baskin Robbins sent to me by David Morris in Charlotte, North Carolina.
This is confirmation.
And it says that the Baskin Robbins officially, because he wrote, I'm trying to find Baskin Robbins Dunkin' Coffee flavor ice cream. Is that anywhere in stock? I'm in Charlotte, but I have family in Washington. Thanks. The response was, hi there. So sorry to inform you, but this flavor has been discontinued in grocery stores.
Go to continue
so
again.
Now there's no point in me even going to in the refugee Safeway, even looking through Dunkin' Donuts. From our friend Jeff Pickett in West Des Moines. While I have never opened for The Who, I did once sing the national anthem a cappella at an Iowa Cubs game. Cubs pitching coach Jerry Royce. Yes, that Jerry Royce said good job. From Mary Fay. Applying to be the official librarian of the Tony Kornheiser Show. I once saw Steve Martin and Goldie Hawn in a restaurant in Concord, Massachusetts. Never Revere. They were there filming the movie House Sitter. I freaked out and said something like, Steve Martin, I love you. I saw you in Austin, Texas in 1977. So embarrassing for me. And one more, from Mitchell. This is Mitchell May from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you don't remember me, as it's been 618 days since my last email in which I provided a detailed explanation of how to properly fold a slice of pizza. At the end of the instructions, I asked to be the official Division III tennis play of the show, to which you responded, sure. I figure you have been anxiously awaiting an update, and I'm here to provide one for you. My teammates and I were able to win the AMCC tournament for the first time since 2012 this year. I went undefeated with my partner at first doubles in conference, and also made the all-conference first team at first doubles and second singles, as well as earning MVP. With winning the AMCC, and I have no idea what that is, what conference that is, we get an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. Our region is conveniently being played at Mary Washington in Fredericksburg, which is only about an hour from D.C. So if you have nothing to do on Friday at 2, come and watch us. What is the AMCC? Anyway, congratulations to Mitchell May from Erie.
Allegheny Mountain Collegiate Conference.
There you go. It's D3. I assume it's D3.
I'm guessing that.
Wonderful. Yes. Good for him. If you're out on your bike time, everyone, as always, do wear white.
I'm going to solve. All right. Cornucopia.
No, don't.
All right, so we got a little bit of flight time left after finishing up that second episode of the Tony Kornheiser Show. We'll go to Thursday's episode of Bussin' with the Boys, which is a podcast hosted by former Nebraska football player Will Compton, also former Michigan football player Taylor Lewan. Here we go.
It's beginning to feel a lot like
A very, very special day, and that day is because you see me and I'm not on the bus right now, which is absolutely fantastic for all of us. To my right is Will Compton. But before we get into this episode, we have to talk about the best vehicle to ever be put on the road. When rubber touched gravel, God went yes. And that has power up and down
Say that
tailgate.
again for him. You can read it once, I can read it. I feel like we've made it a little.
Oh, we've absolutely, give me 30% of that jawline. The man takes a PJ. Where's he live, Virginia?
Yeah.
That was from the hip. Man takes a PJ from Virginia. Instead of going straight to Las Vegas for the NFL draft, he makes a stop in Nashville, Tennessee. Comes to our humble shed, gets on our humble bus.
For one thing, and that's to see the boys.
To see the boys and to have an absolute outstanding conversation.
And we had a bit of a podcast.
We had a bit of a podcast, and we had a first.
That's what I'm saying.
Will Compton.
We're losing our virginity together. To all the listeners out there, we're losing our virginity together.
This is it.
Chris Long was boy enough to roll up a little J.
Oh my!
And we shared a little bit.
Don't
of
point it to me because I didn't.
Yeah. We, as in Chris Long and I,
you know what I'm saying?
we shared a little bit of camaraderie before we hit the bus. Chris, he continued to do it throughout the entire episode. The boy, knowing myself, where I can go when I get in a nice little car wreck.
Yeah.
I had to pump the brakes. I was, dude, when that's happening,
People were nervous for you. People being me.
and I was a little nervous too. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm kind of just going straight from the, like you said, straight from the hip with Chris Long. And it was interesting, but I think it went smooth, bro. Because you can be in your own head.
Oh, there's no
Like,
question
you can
about
sit there
it.
and you're overthinking. You're like, yeah, I'm really doing this on the podcast. Like, I'm doing this on the bus.
Right. And people are watching, and people are going to view this, and it's going to be me being high for the rest of my life in front of people anytime they want to see it on YouTube.
Right.
Or on audio.
Right. And Chris, when somebody like Chris asks you, you're like, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's like a bigger brother to you.
Right.
To us, really. Like,
And it was my first time meeting him.
when we first started
That's
the
the vibe he
podcast.
has.
Yes. And he was a boy. Like, he treated you guys like you guys were longtime friends.
Oh, yeah.
You guys have been internet friends for a while.
We've been
And when it
internet
came
friends
to a
for a
physical
while.
connection, the fusion was unbelievable. All I could
know.
do was step back and watch.
Dude, we hit it off, bro.
It
But I
was
think
unbelievable.
it went solid. Like, I was in my head a couple times a little bit.
Yeah, what were you in
Maybe
your
I
head
was
about?
overthinking.
What do you think in your head about? Because knowing, boy, I'm a
Well, what would
professional
happen?
athlete. I've never smoked weed in my life. But the things I've read about it, I know you can get in your head sometimes. And then you see people looking at you.
Yeah, so that being my first time,
Yeah.
it was one of those things where he's talking to you, and I'm staring at him because the boy's known to listen, and so I'm sitting there listening.
But not only listen, but digest.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there talking, telling the stories, and when he'd look at me and stare at me longer than I was anticipating, I'm thinking to myself, does he know that I'm high right now?
But you guys spoke together.
Right. But I'm thinking to myself, does he know that I'm high and I'm just staring at him high? Because I'm actually listening to him, but he might not know that I'm listening to him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I would start laughing. Like, in the pod, JP, I think I don't know if you've went through the pod yet, but I feel like I start laughing in the middle of him.
Yeah, there's a couple times you do. Go ahead, JP.
Yeah. But then he kept telling the story. And you're kind of like, oh, I gotta tighten up. Nobody thinks this is funny.
No, you were straight. That's the thing.
That's what I'm saying.
All the books, all the literature I've read about marijuana is saying the same thing you're saying right now. There are points in times, there's times when it's just, like, let's say it was you and your really close friend, and you're sitting at somebody's house watching a movie, there's no reason to feel insecure about anything, because you guys are just living.
But
you put yourself in a vulnerable
that's what I'm
situation.
saying, the whole world.
Right, the whole world, with 80 million viewers.
I was gonna say
80 million viewers. Looking at you, watching Will, how's he gonna act? They're watching you pick up that left-handed cigarette and put it in your mouth. Take a puff. There was a lot of parents from the 60s that were shunning you right then and there.
Yeah.
You put that thing down, your life has changed forever.
Right.
You're now the bad boy of this bus.
The edgy, he's got a little edge to
Yeah. And you think, oh, he ain't that bad. He's wearing New Balances or he's wearing them white Nike boys. But really, you bad boy.
Oh, bad boy. I'm gonna tie my might get a tattoo.
Oh shit! Imagine if you got a tattoo.
I know.
Start driving a Harley.
No regrets.
No regrets, dude. You'd be absolutely killing it out there. I think you did phenomenal. And I think, based on what I've read, if I were to be in that situation, I don't think I would have done half as good as you. You know?
Maybe one day we'll find out. One day when we're way down the road.
You know,
and we're just trying
based
to
on my religion, I can't, but maybe
we're trying to get a little excitement in our lives. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When things are dying down for us, we need to spice something
Correct.
up. We'll leave the gimp suit for another day and we'll just jump on.
And one other thing that made it nervous too, nerve-wracking, was like there was no like dry run about it. Like he came on, he asked, he was running late. Like I'm thinking to myself,
he did show up late.
Taylor needed to be out at a certain time because you're workout.
Yeah.
I needed to be home for a certain time for my wife to go do her thing so I can watch the baby. And thinking of all of this stuff, it kind of just happens.
When you did this, did you think everyone's like, "Oh, he talked about the baby"? Did you?
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
like you're trying to calm the crowd. I know. I had to watch the baby. Everyone, calm down. I know. Honestly, it was unbelievable. I think you did a fantastic job. You were in your bag. Please listen. We're gonna jump to the show right now. Being in HQ, we're not going to do our usual shout out, no free shout out of the week. That'll come.
You guys have already listened to it on Tuesday's episode with Mike Chandler.
See, that's where I should have known that when we were saying when you said to me, don't worry about
That's
everything
all right.
I just said.
That's all right.
And here I am looking like a fucking idiot, Will. I'm just kidding. Here in HQ, we're going to get a lot of stuff done. You guys are obviously following along with us. It's going to be unbelievable. Enjoy the show. Subscribe.
There it is.
And rate 5 stars. I don't care if you're on Instagram or Twitter or any Facebook, go there, follow that, and then make sure you go to YouTube, your Apple Podcast, your Spotify, wherever you find for your listening pleasures, wherever you want to go, get your ears a couple of orgasms. You want to go subscribe to that? Please, 70% of our audience does not subscribe to Bustin' with the Boys. We love that there's new people coming in every single day. But once you join on, once you link up to our Redneck Yacht Club, have a little fun with us for the rest of life. You know what I'm saying? Because we're on a journey, and we don't know where we're going, but as long as we're going together, I think we're going to be all right. Enjoy the show.
Dude, I'm stoked you're here. You're finally on fucking Bustin' with the Boys.
This is a big deal. What's going on?
How you doing, Chris?
Thank you. And that's how we thank you, boys.
Dude, what the fuck are we drinking Aquafina for? Is this a sponsor?
No, Aquafina. First off, bleep out that. No free shoutouts. No, that's just, I think, the cheapest water we buy.
Yeah, you're gonna bring the hydrated king
we got them Costco.
Some of that fucking
What's your
water.
What's your go-to?
Liquid Death. That's why
they obviously sponsor you. They're not that great.
No, they don't. And I feel like I'm famous now because I'm on this there we go. I feel like I'm famous now because I'm on this podcast. Sorry to kick the small bus. I would love a sponsorship with Liquid Death. And I'm not too proud to ask for it, so...
Oh, we will ask for anything.
You're the water boy.
Yeah, a fucking...
hydrated king?
Yeah, dude, like, people, like, Tom Segura, he thinks he's like a hydrated king. Your guy, you hung out with Bert recently.
Yeah.
And that was awesome, right? You were telling me.
Oh, it was incredible. Bert was the man, dude.
He was really fucking good, dude.
Tom thinks he's the hydrated king. He's not the hydrated king. We're the hydrated kings. We're actually athletes.
What qualifies you to be a hydrated king?
Yeah, go through that.
Well, I have a water charity.
Sure. Yeah, and I know that.
End of discussion.
It's a good one, too.
Yeah, it's not
you guys climb Mount Kilimanjaro?
You're going to do it.
One day, yeah.
I have a feeling.
One day I'll do it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Is that a tough climb?
I have no clue.
Is it like Camelback and Scottsdale? Like, what's the deal?
It's like it's many.
It's a little grind, too.
It's a little bit of grind?
It's a little, the Camelback.
It's like many Camelbacks. Like, it's just stacked on top of each other.
You stay nights?
Yeah, you stay nights.
Oh, it's a camp thing. It's like a summer camp hike.
It's a summer camp.
When I first met my wife, we went to California, and there was like this hill that everyone went and hiked. And she's like, "Do you want to hit a hike?" I'm like, "Pro athlete, never been on a hike before."
Yeah.
So pro athlete, I'm gonna fucking kill this. Her and my buddy were, no joke, half a mile ahead of me at one point. I'm fucking dying. And the incline's like that. It's not very big at all. I was getting murdered.
Well, you're carrying a backpack.
No, I was carrying my pride, and that was pretty heavy at that point.
300 pounds. Like, to those people, you're carrying multiple backpacks.
Yeah, that's true.
You're at a disadvantage. You know what I mean? So, honestly, this hike is really cool. And anybody listening is conquering Killy. And you can check out Waterboys. I'm doing the charity plug right off the bat. But it is interesting, and I'd love to have you guys one year. Seriously. Like, Big Cat committed
you were a water boy.
I am a water boy. I am.
But he didn't do it.
Well, the problem is I didn't give him a lot of shit to do either, though. To be honest, we didn't give Taylor a lot of shit to do.
Taylor's not very good with responsibility.
No, we were just
I'm good with podcasts, football,
beautiful face on our
foreplay.
website, dude. Foreplay, huh?
Oh, dude, I'm outstanding. I don't know if I'm outstanding, but my effort's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's like if you... Yeah, go ahead.
When I was... Well...
I didn't want the analogies. I don't know.
Well, no, go ahead. What's the analogy?
I don't know.
I'm busting with the boys. I don't know.
Well, I've heard you make comments about your piece before.
Yeah, it's not the best. I mean, here's the deal. My penis... all jokes aside, my penis.
6 minutes and 38 seconds, and we're talking about Taylor's dick.
I like to think we're right on par with our podcast. This is the trajectory usually goes up. My penis is not big by any means. Is it? I don't look at it and I go, yeah, I don't fucking, yeah. But I will say that it's super approachable.
Yeah.
It's very handsome.
Yeah, good.
It doesn't have like a misshapen thing at the tip. It stays nice and pink and then gets a little darker towards the end. And it just kind of.
Now I'm seeing it. Now I'm seeing it. I didn't want to see it.
Handsome has a little bit of like masculinity and size too.
He stands up straight.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're gonna say handsome the way you're describing, I'm thinking hey, he's adorable, he's cute, he's approachable.
I was voted most huggable in high school.
Can't be handsome.
Yeah, most huggable
In life, no.
I agree with that.
They're not handsome.
Brad Pitt,
agree with that.
Tom Cruise, Leonardo DiCaprio, all these guys are under 6 foot. Huh?
People say like
Hardy.
John Hamm and Vince Vaughn are handsome. They're
No, they're not really that handsome. They have great personalities, which makes them more handsome. Their personalities make them pretty better.
Nobody says Tom Cruise is so handsome.
I think people used to before they found out about Scientology. People were all about
platform shoes, dude.
That's what I'm saying. No,
everybody looks like handsome and stuff.
Here's what I'm saying. I've never pulled my pants down with a woman involved, and she'll go, "Ooh." They've always gone, "Wow, that's really nice to see." It's really it's like a dinner date. It's something you marry. Like my penis is not like that.
What are you?
Handsome
What happens? Do you take a moment with every?
Hold on a second, because if the football coach knows you're going 2-14, they'll tell you that in camp.
Right.
I'm arguing with.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
I'm saying
you're saying
I'm not saying you're smaller and embarrassing, but I don't think them not laughing. You know what I mean? Like
no, yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Well,
yeah. What I'm wondering is, do you take a moment with every chick just to like pull down your pants and
have
a
reaction? I dim the lights.
Every chick's like, oh wow, that looks awesome. It's like, where are we at in this moment?
No, you don't do that. We get a good kiss in. Touch the neck a little bit, rub the boobies, change the tunes.
We were at 4.
How do you rub the?
And then I fucking say, "Are you ready?"
How do you?
It's like changing radio, baby. Come on, baby.
I rip it forward.
And I dim the lights real fucking nice. I light a candle and I always have lavender. And I go, "Are you ready?" And they go, "For what?" And I go, "For this."
Lavender to go to sleep.
Like an aphrodisiac or something.
No, it's calming.
No, it is calming.
Well, that's an interesting topic on the podcast for us to wrap up with. But we've landed here in Boston. We got a little laggy towards the end on the video. I bumped the graphics down to high, and it was still kind of choppy. I don't know exactly what would make it smooth as possible. But we're going to call that a successful first flight. And next time we'll pick up taking off from Boston. So until then, signing out from Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 World Tour.